but I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
I need help, please help!
Won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roger, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0,
doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, you know what? I've been thinking about this quite a lot, as I do. Just the whole Big P phenomenon, the whole occult action of the U.S. government and other governments around the world that have been into these wild ideas. And it feels like this is one of the most obvious conspiracies ever, okay? And many people have covered this. They've talked about this often. But it seems like, since the sort of UFO disclosure aspect of, 2017, the New York Times article, it kind of feels as if this occult historical aspect of the military-industrial complex is kind of really been buried in all these other narratives of UFO sightings, or of course disclosure narratives in terms of congressional hearings, and even we have this new Anna Paulina Luna heading this new transparency office, or whatever the hell they're calling it, to release the Epstein files, to release all the things, the UFO stuff, whatever, right? And recognize what they're not talking about is really the paranormal aspect of our military-industrial complex. Because this goes back a very long time historically, and back to paperclip and the Nazis and all kinds of ridiculous things. But then also it's something that really never stopped, or at least publicly, as well, we're supposed to not know about it, that type of stuff, right? So who knows what's really still happening and what kind of information will kind of leak out. But recognize what's happening with the new initiative for disclosure. Not just disclosure, but of, let's say, UFOs, but what they're not talking about is, psi abilities. They're not talking about some of this other stuff that, Project Stargate, we've talked about this quite a lot. Montauk, which is what the Stranger Things was based on, psychic children and how they identify these people. And it got me thinking, like, how come this isn't part of that larger disclosure aspect of this new transparency office? It's weird, right? But anyway, I'm calling this the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex because this is one of those ones that goes back a long time and is befuddling because you got to wonder what they learned from it. And not just that, how they've sort of deployed the assets of such and how they continue to recruit people, with psi abilities or maybe this type of thing. I don't really know. And there's a lot of people saying, you guys remember the old GATE program from the 80s and maybe early 90s. It was called GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. I was in part of that for a little bit. No, nobody ever whisked me off to some underground lab and showed me aliens or, put the Cerebro on my head to see if I could remote view Mars. None of that. It was just, you're in the smart kids English class and, this type of stuff. But it was never like that. But now suddenly we have these conspiracies discussing that idea of education being embedded in public schools is a way to sort of identify people that are extraordinary, that have, post-human abilities that they're trying to sort of harness in on and maybe even recruit into the CIA or whatever. I don't know. Like, I never saw direct evidence of that. I had some weirdos in my classes, but, me, chief among them, of course, if you know me at all, I'm a super weirdo. But I mean, and that's fine. There's just no problems with that. But you get what I mean. Like, what the hell is it? And so I was just kind of going through some of the basics of what this looks like, and it's extensive. It's freaking huge. There's so much stuff. And so here we go. I'm going to just read this. This is from a Perplexity deep dive. Okay, just for full transparency on where this information came from. It delved 56 sources. Listen to this. This is nuts. So for decades, the United States government conducted extensive research into paranormal phenomena, psychic abilities, and occult practices through various classified programs. We know this, of course, but this involvement spanning from the post-World War II era through the mid-1990s, is that when it stopped, represents a fascinating intersection of national security concerns, Cold War competition, and of course, fringe science. The military and intelligence communities dedicated significant resources to investigating psychic phenomena, like remote viewing, psychokinesis, driven by fears of Soviet advancement in these areas, and the potential strategic advantages such capabilities might offer. These efforts, collectively forming what some have termed a military-industrial-paranormal complex, that's my term, by the way, reveal how national security imperatives can push government research into unconventional and controversial domains. And clearly, some of the ones we know right out of the gate, Operation Paperclip. I'll read this a little bit just so we can kind of get into this, but it turns into this psychic arms race. It turns into these maybe government programs and these other research initiatives as part of it. And even that breakaway civilization that we've talked about in the past, which some have sniffed back to the Battelle Memorial Institute. If you guys know anything about this, it was actually included in Operation, what was it called? Project Blue Book, actually, the original Project Blue Book, which is strange. And these guys funnel a ton of money. Let me give you the deets on this. The links are going to be in the description down below. But the Battelle Memorial Institute has total revenue $8.259 billion. And I'm not sure if that's yearly or what, but this is from nonprofitlight.com. And anyway, so they've got net assets of over $500 million, total expenses of $8.1 billion. So what the hell are they spending this money on, and what the hell are they creating? Anyway, we'll get back to Battelle in a moment. But basically, the idea here is that it's complicated, isn't it? As usual, these things are incredibly complicated. So the U.S. government's formal engagement with paranormal research has its roots in the aftermath of World War II. As American intelligence officers combed through Nazi Germany's scientific archives, they discovered that high-ranking Nazi officials, particularly Heinrich Himmler, had invested considerable resources in occult research, and that's a real thing. Operation ALSOS, ALSOS, an elite U.S. scientific, I've never even heard of that, intelligence initiative, uncovered documents and artifacts in Berlin related to Himmler's science organization, the NERB, pardon my German, literally AHNENERBE. Anyway, which included an entire branch devoted to the survey of so-called occult sciences. This discovery likely contributed to American interest in paranormal phenomena as a potential area of military application. Now, is that all it takes, is finding sort of these archives within, the remnant of what was left of Nazi Germany at the end of World War II to kind of spook the American Cold War into this particular space of psychic phenomena, of the Stargate project, of all the stuff that we do know about? Is it as simple as that, where they think, well, maybe they were onto something and now we have to do this too? Or is it deeper? Does it go further back? And is it more spooky than we ever dreamed? So the question tonight is, number one, do you think this is possible, that this is still ongoing, this military-industrial paranormal complex, okay? And if so, what would it look like in 2025? How are they recruiting people for this? It clearly would have to be children in some capacity, right? Again, we start to get horrific here with the idea of human trafficking and whatnot. There's some really weird things with this that makes me wonder if they're still up to some things. But again, as usual, just because my tinfoil tingles doesn't necessarily mean something is the way it is. But anyway, so the write-up is sort of a fictional account of what this might look like in 2025. So just some ideas, but I'd love to hear your ideas. So we are taking your calls tonight. After we take a quick break here, we're going to get to James in a moment. We'll take your calls at the bottom of the hour. But is this still going on? Do you think they found anything? And if they did, how have they deployed it in 2025? That's what's on my mind tonight. I hope you guys are well. I am doing just fine and having fun as I usually do doing this. Be right back. More Trouble Minds coming up in exactly 1 minute after a word from our sponsor. In this case, that's Human Inspiration. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
In a world increasingly shaped by AI, human inspiration remains the beating heart of creativity. Alien Skin by Tremble, a hauntingly beautiful piano ballad, reminds us that while algorithms can mimic art, the raw, unfiltered emotions of human experience are irreplaceable.
So here I sit, locked in my room again.
Written and composed by Jesse Ian in collaboration with Todd Smith, this progressive masterpiece delves into the depths of internalized grief and the silent toll of artistic compromise. As AI reshapes our reality, Alien Skin stands as a testament to the timeless power of human emotion and the complex beauty that only true artists can evoke. Experience the haunting beauty of Alien Skin by Tremble and support human inspiration. Available now on iTunes.
If you guys checked out that track, please do. Please help our sponsors and go purchase that if you have not. I'm sure it's incredibly cheap. I think 99 cents or $1.49, something like that. Let's help Human Inspiration write the next amazing song. Again, that's Alien Skin by Tremble. You can find that on iTunes. Appreciate the support of the show. So back to this. We're talking the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex. So is this still ongoing? And if so, what does it look like in 2025? And what have they learned in the past, 80 years? And have they deployed some of this stuff? Are there actual, if we look at the modern UFO phase of psionics and a lot of these other ideas, it seems as if this might be a very true thing. Some of these whistleblowers like Jake Barber, some have suggested that this stuff is very real and they're using it to communicate with UFOs and whatnot. But we're looking at not just sort of the breakaway civilization aspect of all the missing trillions from the Pentagon, but then also the larger context of what this still looks like and how are they recruiting these people to do something that supposedly doesn't exist. So that's where my mind's at. I'd love to hear your guys' take on this because there's a lot to it, I think. And do you think that this is one of the things they want to slide under the rug and not really talk about? They're like, yeah, you can have the UFOs. Yeah, you can have Epstein. Yeah, you can have the JFK files. But nobody's talking about this in particular as far as transparency goes. I wonder why. You think that's suspicious? I say maybe, and maybe is good enough for me to think about it and talk about it. Anyway, love to hear what you think. If you want to be part of the conversation, you know what to do. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Let's go to James. Thanks for being patient, my man. You are on the show. How are you, sir? And go right ahead.
I'm okay. Hopefully I sound all right.
Yes, sir. Adjusting your volume. That's my bad. Talk a little bit, please.
Okay, I am talking, and I can talk.
And you can talk, and you are talking. Okay, better. I got you. I bumped you down the other night, I think, because you were a little hot when we were talking on Friday night, and then now it's a little low, so that's my fault. Bumped you back up. We're good to go. Welcome to the joint. How you feeling, sir? And go right ahead. What do you think about this topic here?
Yeah, no problem. I'm doing okay. Glad to be here, and I just these topics are always amazing to me because of that ratio of how much we've learned over the years, how much we think we know, and I like to say that just because who knows for sure, versus how much is not reported. And I do think even if any kind of program, let's say like with remote viewing or whatever programs were shut down, even if that did happen, I would be very surprised if someone didn't restart them at some point, but just managed to keep them, maybe they did a better job of keeping them quiet as time went on, especially going into, let's say, the late 90s, early 2000s, when they knew that the internet would be coming. And they would have to keep things a lot more secure if they could, to avoid everything getting out a lot easier, I think, while still spreading. People still having people spread accounts of previous experiences to sort of make it so that they could say, yeah, well, yeah, we did all that before. That's been done. We're not really interested in that now, but while possibly still looking into those things.
Yeah, it is a strange thing. It goes back far enough to where surely they've learned some things about some things, and maybe ruled some things out, and maybe considered some other parts of this, the psi abilities or whatnot, as maybe bearing some fruit. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about psionics in 2025. Or, of course, is this the entire thing just a big psyop to kind of lead us off the trail? But if that was the case, in my opinion, as I was saying just previously there, that this would be sort of at the cusp of that disclosure effort and narrative. And I do wonder why it isn't as part of it. This is one of the things that would probably, in my opinion, be far more fascinating than, the JFK files. I mean, there's a lot of really wild things in there as part of a larger conspiracy. But when you talk about actual psi abilities and what the government actually does know, and maybe some of the black projects that have never seen the light of day, that type of thing, as I say, makes my tinfoil tingle. So I don't know. It's a strange thing that we know this, except it's still not in the zeitgeist per se. It's sort of been usurped by these new sort of UFO narratives and all this other stuff. It's a strange thing, isn't it?
It is, and so much of, at least from what I've heard and seen, a lot of the narratives regarding UFOs, it seems to focus a lot on physical craft or just energy. Sometimes they will bring up energy or plasma or orbs once in a while, but there's a lot of focus on the technological angle of everything. Meanwhile, there's still so many reports, I mean, I've been talking about this for years, of people seeing lights in the sky or in the forest or in their homes. And we don't know what any of those are, what the differences are between those. But that stuff is not, again, in large part, not talked about much. And I wonder why that is as well, if that's something that they do know some about, or they don't know, or they only know one version of, they only know how to summon, let's say, one version of those. And then they don't know what the rest of them are.
Yeah. The whole thing is really strange to me. The more I think about it, like I said, it feels like this might be the greatest cover up that really doesn't get enough credit. That maybe there is this larger machine in play that's even plucking kids out of schools, and they end up in the CIA and stuff like this. I don't know. It's weird. We know they're doing that with very intelligent programmers and stuff like that. You want to hire the hackers and make them good hackers before they turn into bad hackers, type of thing. But if in the case of like psi abilities, I wonder if this has been a thing for a long time for exactly that reason. Like, we want to kind of adopt these people, bring them in, hire them, give them nice paying government jobs, so they don't become a public menace or use their powers for something against the state, or what I mean, something like that. I don't know. Does it seem like maybe that's what we're dealing with here in this larger context of what this might be, the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex?
Yeah, it seems possible. I would also not be surprised if they continue monitoring people, even if they don't bring them in necessarily. I still wonder, and I can go into it later again real quick to describe it again. I still wonder about my possible abduction experience I had years ago, where I had this whole experience that seems similar to alien abductions, but then there's also the idea that sometimes when that's happening, it's not necessarily beings from another planet. It's some people from this planet doing it and manipulating our senses and doing whatever they do. And then, of course, having consequences after. And really, it's wild for me to think about that, because years later, that's when I started having even more unusual experiences while I was sleeping, having to do with looking into or seeing into alternate or parallel universes. And I wonder how much of those two things are connected, if they are at all, or not, because I never had those kinds of experiences before that possible abduction experience.
Yeah, all that stuff really comes into play here because they've really gone down the rabbit holes researching this stuff just from what we do know. Again, Project Stargate, the remote viewing stuff, and then everything else kind of stacked on top of that. So Annie Jacobson wrote a book on this, and so there's an article going back to 2017, interestingly around the same time of the New York Times article on the disclosure movement, right, the UFO disclosure stuff. But why the United States government embraced the occult. And the book is actually called, what's it called here? So the Secret History of the U.S. Government's Investigations into Extrasensory Perception and Psychokinesis. And so I don't know, there's a lot in motion, and I wonder, like, you think this is still happening? I guess really becomes the question. In 2025, do you think that they've weaponized this, or they're still sort of recruiting in a clandestine manner? That's the thing that kind of makes me go, wait a minute now, what would that look like? Because all the options for me become terrifying because, like I said, it's really about children in some capacity because, right, you'd have to spot them as they're born and they start to grow up and they start to exhibit these abilities. If you guys believe that stuff, if you don't, that's cool too. But clearly the government believed enough to sort of be into this for at least 80 years now. So I don't know. It's a strange thing. What would it look like? And where does it lead, I guess?
Yeah, I think obviously the internet would make things easier in a way to monitor that kind of stuff. And just the amount of technology that is already in schools now, I imagine I haven't been into a school in many years now, but I imagine it's just even more, there's more of it now than there ever used to be. I wouldn't be surprised that there's different ways to, especially with what they've learned from their projects that they have done, and the different ways that they've brought people into different programs, like you said, that GATE program, similar things. And the weird thing with that to me is always that some accounts people have shared on different paranormal themed shows and that experience shows where they talk about their experiences, is that there's also missing time, either for them or for the people that are in the classrooms when they're sort of examined. There's people don't have any memories of them being taken away from the class or brought back, or even their parents have no memory of that. And that's where, to me, things get really wild, because what is happening there? That suggests a whole other level of manipulation by people and or other forces that is it's really advanced.
Yeah, I see Lanessa in the chat is saying that she had some experiences that she started to remember later on in her life, around 33 years old. They started to kind of clip back. She was in the Gifted and Talented program as well, and did a podcast on it. If you have an insight on that, I'd love to link that. I'll share it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to call in later and tell us about it, that would be amazing too. It's a strange thing that if this is happening, that it does really kind of reek of child trafficking in some capacity, kind of picking them out for particular reasons and then, recruiting them into the government to be psychic spies. I mean, that's what Jake Barber has suggested with, the psionics team and communicating with UFOs in that capacity. So like I said, it's in the zeitgeist again, but recognize the larger part of it is that they're not really talking about that, the aspect of the recruitment aspect and the internal, how big is that team? There's a lot of really, really interesting questions there that really don't kind of get dragged out into the light. And maybe just maybe by us talking about it, it might get some attention and maybe get up to Anna Paulina Luna and addressed as part of the transparency effort. I would love that. As you know, we got about a minute left. What else you got, sir?
I just also wonder, even if, let's say, they find children or people with abilities, if maybe due to different factors, whether it's just the abilities are too varied or maybe not strong enough by certain standards that they have, do they just let them go, but then they still monitor them? And then I think also not all children, or not all people, I don't think, will always manifest abilities when they're children. So then do those people slip through the cracks because of that? Or are they still monitored as they get older, to the point where, maybe they do still get at least monitored and kept track of over time?
Yeah, it's an odd thing. Like I said, it seems to be one of the biggest kept secrets forever, and still, even today, they're not talking about it. So it does make you wonder about the shiny object of transparency when they're like, oh, look, we got the JFK files. Well, they kind of screwed up on the Epstein stuff. But I mean, does anybody really expect to get that anyway? But then we're supposed to get the UFO files and all manner of this transparency, but nobody's talking about this. and it makes me wonder why. What do you guys know? We're talking the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex tonight. James, our, of course, paranormal expert of Salcedo Paranormal, is sitting in with us tonight, hanging out. Love to hear your thoughts on this. How deep does this go? How far back is it? And what does it program today in 2025 look like that I'm calling the Military-Industrial Paranormal Complex? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like that. We got David coming up of Magic in the Noise and your calls as well. More from James. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds coming up in just a quick minute. Be right back.
Shadows cast by hollow dreams, where whispers weave their cryptic schemes. The puppeteers pull strings unseen, with secrets wrapped in velvet folds. We dance beneath the moonlight's glow. The truth unfolds, but do we know? In the heart of power, shadows play. Illusions rise, then fade away. In the corridors where silence looms, darkened truths are born from gloom. With every pulse the echoes call, a sacred pact to rise or fall. The lanterns flicker, eyes aglow, chasing visions that darkly flow. In this realm where dark sprites dwell, we ride the waves, a twisted spell. In the heart of power, shadows play. Illusions rise, then fade away. In the corridors where silence looms, darkened truths are born from gloom. Dare we tread where few have gone, in the night where dreams are drawn. Faceless whispers haunt our path, as fate entwines with shadows' wrath. In the heart of power, shadows play. Illusions rise, then fade away. In the corridors where silence looms, darkened truths are born from gloom. Behind those walls the rituals spark, in smoke-filled rooms where the secret dark echoes of power in a neon glow. Symbols dance where few would go. In the heart of power, shadows play. Illusions rise, then fade away.
I think I got the new wave style pretty much dialed in. What's up? Hope you guys are well tonight. What's up, Bailey Apoc? We got David going to talk to him momentarily. What's up, Sweets, Matsell, Sonia, Hirsch, Dawn, Mindy, Daryl, and Eric. I see you guys. What's going on? If I missed anybody, say hi. I'll say hi back. We're not on Kick tonight. I couldn't log into Kick. I don't know if I got banned or something. That'd be sweet. But yeah, well, you know. It wouldn't be the first time. What is going on? Who did I miss? Let's see. Lanessa, a great chat. Appreciate all the information there. Lucifer, Mr. Mission Control. How you guys doing? Steve in England. Good evening. What's up, Fred? Hello, hello. Let's see. Who did I miss here? Sonia. What's up? Good evening. Good evening. Great chat already. You guys are lighting it on fire. Appreciate that very much. Thanks for being nice to each other. Who else? If I missed you, just say hi. I'll say hi back. Trying to keep up. Joey the Gent. What's going on, my man? Who else is here? Good evening. Good evening. Over to Rumble. And yeah, hope you guys are doing great, doing a thing here. Puff, what's up, Hiker? We got YY, Liz on the coast. What's happening, folks? We got good evening, North Vixen. What's happening? If I missed you, just say hi. I'll say hi back. And Puff is here. All right, here we go. Trouble Minds happening now. We got more from James, David, of Magic in the Noise, and your calls as well. Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, do classified programs study consciousness beyond public science? Are consumer technologies reverse engineered from recovered non-terrestrial artifacts? Perhaps the strategic blending of truth within manufactured myths constitutes the perfect concealment system, creating automatic skepticism while hiding genuine phenomena in plain sight. And of course, we're talking about what I'm calling the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex. And it does go back to reverse engineering UFOs and metamaterials and Project Stargate and Stranger Things and the Montauk idea, and recruiting people to be psionics users is what they're being called today. And even, Jake Barber recently has said they have a team of actual psionic practitioners that are communicating and bringing down UFOs. Now, if this is the case, how would you recruit gifted individuals to do these sorts of things? And is that still happening today? Because clearly, in the past, it seems like the United States government was completely fascinated with the idea. But if they're bearing fruit from it, and it's some part of some larger hidden clandestine program, then maybe, just maybe, this goes deeper than we all ever dreamed. Love to hear what you think. Anything real quick, James, and then we'll go to David after you.
Yeah, I think that, anytime that any major program is shut down because they don't believe and they don't think it's useful, like I said, I would be very surprised if it's not kept, or if it's not restarted, or something similar is created not long after by someone who, maybe didn't believe that the whole time, but they had to go with the political or the company line for a moment, until things kind of calm down, and then just start things back up again.
Yeah, which is strange. And kind of, like I said, this is one of the ones that I would want transparency on. What does this look like? And nobody's talking about this. I mean, some folks in the UFO community are, because of the new revelations with, Jake Barber and the psionics practitioners. But like I said, what does this recruitment process look like? And does it seem not only invasive, how do they find this stuff out? And then how do they recruit these people when they're mostly children? It seems exploitative, dare I say. Wild stuff. So do you guys think this is still happening? That really is the question tonight. If you want to be part of the show, we're here with James and taking your calls, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. What's up, David? Welcome back of Magic in the Noise. How are you, sir? What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, Michael. It's good to talk to you again. Great topic matter. Yeah, it's interesting. Sasha and I had done a video on this on Magic in the Noise Unlisted, our YouTube channel. We have two of them, a main one that's just Magic in the Noise, and then an Unlisted where we have more topic conversations and interviews and things of that nature. But when I found out that there was a psychoenergetics program, this is the thing that's fascinating to me, is like remote viewing community in general focuses only on remote viewing. They don't talk about the psychoenergetic side of the program. There's two parts to that program. One is remote viewing, one is psychoenergetics. Once you see that program exists and you look at the declassified documents on it, and this is what we did the video on, and you see the kinds of influence that they were having in different experiments, it's very real. Like, you realize pretty quickly, like, oh, that's the real program. And the remote viewing is actually like more of the cover distractionary component, that they don't want you to look at the other part of the program, but it's in the declassified docs. In terms of it still going on today, absolutely, in my opinion. I have experiences that are really extreme, and I know what's possible, like really extreme stuff. And I'm quite certain that they are absolutely still on it. In terms of some of the reasons why we might be seeing it coming out more in the public, I believe that it's a strong possibility that with AI coming out, that there is I think there's two ways you can look at it. Conceptually, I could say that if you want to look at a system, because you can see how AI is sort of changing our world exponentially. And what would be sort of a counterbalance to that, right? What would be an offset? If you look at nature, like what would nature throw up against something like AI to kind of like put it in check? In my opinion, psychic capabilities are something that could compete with AI. So I don't think about it like a war or anything like that. I'm just thinking about conceptually, like, how does the system kind of balance itself out? And I think what we're going to see as these programs come out, They're going to expose more of it. They're going to expose the technology. They're going to want to leverage it in the public eye. I think part of it's because AI is coming out, and it's sort of this, whether that's what they will admit or not. I think that sort of from I don't want to say like a God level, but sort of from this back end level, that's the psychic component needs to kind of come out to balance things out. But from their perspective, I think it's going to be the combination of psychic ability and AI to drive tech that they have to bring out. And so I think you're going to see this start to transpire over the next several years. So I think this is an early part of that disclosure process, in my opinion.
Okay, so it's on the way. I've long said this too, that sort of the human intuition aspect is the counterbalance of predicting the next token of these AI systems. And clearly, if you take the intuition of epigenetics and, you know, kind of this baked in stuff that we can't really explain scientifically, rationally just yet, you know, somebody the morphic field, somebody looking at the back of your head and you know that you're being watched, this type of thing, this sort of extrasensory things we recognize but don't really give too much credit to. But if you take that and the intuition aspect to counterbalance what these AI systems are doing with the next token predictions, suddenly, if you can scale the idea of intuition into what you're describing, these psi abilities, it certainly seems like this would be where the next step of our human evolution would go to, very sort of X-Men style stuff, which is weird, but also with the acceleration stuff, AI and everything else, the technologies, I can't say that it seems ridiculous, because there's where do we go next? There's always a next step for something, and it doesn't always have to be ridiculous and evil and backwards and upside down. So I don't know. I think you're onto something here, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if your audience has heard of an attorney, forget his first name, but his last name, Sheehan. He's come out with different disclosure piece of information. I haven't really studied his credentials, but I believe he's like legit. He's essentially claims to be a lawyer, that he's an older guy, and he's worked on the JFK cases. Like, he's worked on supposedly famous cases throughout history in the United States. And he came out in an interview maybe a year ago or 8 months or so, and he said that Ron L. Hubbard wanted him to be his attorney, essentially. And Sheehan was like, well, yeah, like he had certain stipulations, right? And one of the stipulations was he said he needed to see information on Scientology. Like, and I won't really go into that whole story, that's kind of irrelevant, but what he claimed was that when he went into Scientology, they had to give him, in order for this thing to work the way that he wanted, so that to get what he needed out of him to be their lawyer, they gave him, like, he said, I want to see your top 3 secrets. And so they had collected a lot of information, and he said that one of the secrets that they told him, they showed him a file, and this was supposedly, I think he said Ingo Swann, who was a Scientologist and was in the SRI Stargate program. And he said that the file said that Ingo Swann said Pat Price, who was another famous remote viewer from the Stargate. Well, he actually wasn't in Stargate. He was in SRI, and he worked for the CIA because the CIA had a contract with SRI prior to the military coming on board in 75. But prior to that, 72 to 75 was the CIA that had tasks SRI to do psychic studies. So Pat Price, in that time frame, the file claimed that he went to a place in Canada above Michigan, went into a building with a domed, that was like there was part of the building was domed. There was antenna array on top. He put a helmet on, Pat Price, and he thought a specific thought. When they turned the antennas down towards the U.S., he thought a particular thought, and the thought was he wanted this region in the U.S., the citizens, to file their tax returns in a very specific, like there were multiple places you could kind of like place them. He said, put it in this one place. And this wasn't like the next day or the next month. This was like 6 months later. Like, this is months ahead of that kind of activity, right? Sheehan claimed that the file said 85% of that population followed that directive. So this would be remote influencing using technology. Now, the other thing that's a little bit interesting to me is that Sasha blindly tasked me as a remote viewer this actual scenario just like a week ago, and I didn't know what it was, right? So it's like, I'm blind, so I have no idea, so I'm just pulling the data. And I came up with the concept of psychic technology already in use. So my remote viewing was saying that tech is still in use like now. And yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with that. Danny Sheehan is the guy's name. I'm familiar with him. He's actually after Trump got elected, they had a picture of him in the White House with Elon, and I mean he's definitely connected in a lot of ways. He's he actually represents a lot of the higher up folks in the UFO community as well. It's wild to see some of these people that have all the connections going back to L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology and some of these other things, which is a whole nother thread for a whole nother time, I think, because everybody kind of talks about it and tiptoes around it. And I think it's because Scientology is so litigious, right? You say something negative about them, they'll just sue your nuts off. So maybe that's part of it, but I'm not trying to stick my toes in that water. But certainly there's a lot of really weird things that kind of come as part of the Scientology aspect of being connected, and then this stuff to the U.S. government at the highest places of power. It's absolutely insane. And maybe that's what's happening as part of that, the weirdness of Scientology and the larger context of these psi abilities. Who really knows?
Yeah. Fascinating stuff.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So great show. Great topic. Appreciate you doing what you do.
Right on.
And if you want to check us out on Magic and the Noise at YouTube or on Patreon, feel free to do that.
Absolutely. Magic in the Noise. Search it. Scroll down troubledminds.org/friends. I think I did put David on there. Let me check. If not, it says Sasha. Click that. I think David is on the list as well. But search it yourself. You'll find it. I'll drop the link in the chat as well. Please go say hi. Go meet these amazing people. I spent some time with them, and they're very smart and got some amazing ideas. And just sharing knowledge and wisdom and all the things that we do together. Very much one of us. Appreciate you, David. Thanks for the call. Thanks for caring about the ideas, and keep doing you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
You too. You're the best. David of Magic in the Noise. Again, I'll get that link and drop it in the chat. Please go give them a follow. It's free to follow them on YouTube. Please go do that, and all the places. I'll drop in just a second here. But anything on that, James, while I delve out that link and kind of spread it in the chat here?
Yeah, no problem. Great call from David. I that's another one of those channels where I want to listen more. I just haven't gotten around to as much of it as I want to yet. But it's it's really also kind of funny because I live in Michigan, so I'm like right below where that building is. So that's kind of weird. But I mean, not right below, but still Canada, not too far away from me. The connected nature of just all the people that are involved in, popularizing some of these topics of UFOs or whatever, to some of these major people that are somewhat connected to government figures. There's a whole other side to all this too. And I mean, I wonder how many other sort of contacts they have in the military that they don't ever talk about that are involved in these programs. And some of these programs that maybe we never hear about because they've gotten better, or somehow they've gotten better at keeping them quiet. And so they're not, they haven't been leaked just yet, or I mean, maybe by the time they are years from now, it won't matter so much. And I love also the idea of the sort of human intuition versus, or along with, either way you go, along with AI. I think that's a major point. I think I do agree that's going to be key in the future. And maybe I wonder if some programs are looking into that, sort of using that, sort of changing the human mind or expanding it to the point where it can either work with AI or sort of keep it in check, as David mentioned there. I can see both ways because there's not just one AI system yet. There's no singularity just yet, as far as we know. So there's going to be different AI systems that are run and owned by different countries that, the people program them, so they may still have their agendas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot happening in this space, and it does go back to the UFO stuff quite a bit. And I want to, we don't really talk about this a lot because I'm not an expert. I'm really not an expert in anything, but there's this is a rabbit hole that goes way, way, way deep. So this is straight from the blackvault.com. Of course, John Greenwald Jr., everybody knows him. He's the FOIA guy and got millions of actual files released and pages on his website. But this is from Project Blue Book, Special Report number 14 in May of 1955. Now, listen to this. Project Blue Book Special Report Number 14 was a massive statistical analysis undertaken by the U.S. Air Force and the Battelle Memorial Institute to study UFO sightings. The report is significant as it represents the largest such study ever undertaken, with a total of 3,200 cases analyzed by the time the report was complete in 1954. The goal was to make the UFO study more scientific, and the approach involving devising a standardized reporting form and analyzing the existing sighting reports based on about 30 report characteristics. But the reason I bring it up, again, in 1955 is a long time ago, but the Battelle Memorial Institute has been one of those entities that's been described as that breakaway civilization, or the people that might be behind the scenes reverse engineering UFO technology. Again, sort of, or at least kind of on the cusp of doing that type of stuff, if it exists. Again, like I said, if you believe that stuff's real, cool. If you don't, that's fine by me too. I'm not here to change anybody's reality tunnel or anything. It's just interesting that these names keep popping up. And as part of the Doge initiative recently, they were talking about Data Republican on X. I don't know if anybody follows her. She's fantastic. She's basically just a high performing, she's deaf, right? I think she's deaf. And so she's a programmer, that a data analyst and I think database architect that was kind of creating these tools that will allow people to find the waste, fraud, and abuse that's going on. Trust me, I'm not going to turn this political hang tight just a second. I'll turn it back here. But when I was following her at first, and she was describing, these institutions that were getting public money, and she pointed this out and was like, this has to be an error, right? She's like, does anybody know anything about this? The Battelle Memorial Institute? Because she's like, they've got a ton of public money over the years, and I can't really account why they would be part of that. And so she kind of like, just through data analytics, was able to go, wait a minute, how come all this money is going to this like spooky place that nobody knows anything about? And again, you go trace it all the way back to Project Blue Book, and some of the things they're doing now makes you go, okay, well, is this where some of that stuff goes? Not just, let's say, the technology, but in the larger context, something like a remote viewing program, or who knows, right? The psi abilities, or the things we talk about. But Battelle, like I said, $8 billion. I'm not sure if this is just 1 year, but total revenue, $8.2 billion. Total expenses, $8.1 billion. So they're spending all of it. The money's going somewhere. But what are they creating? And there's some stuff, if you dig a little deeper, that kind of makes you go, oh, okay, I mean, maybe. But billions of dollars to do this stuff? I mean, I know research is expensive, but maybe this is one of the things they've kind of been tasked to do. And who knows? Like I said, I'm just kind of guessing here, but it is a name that pops up quite a lot if you go deep diving into ufology. So maybe this is where that psi ability stuff is kind of stacked away, and we're maybe going to catch up to it. I don't know. What do you know about them, James, the Battelle? Yeah, I know Alien Scientist talks about them quite a lot. Is it something that's been on your radar? What's your take on that?
It's more just the name. I've heard that, just the name of the location. I haven't really looked into it in particular, but I've heard the name mentioned an association with just sort of secret programs, possibility of secret programs over the years. And to me, that brings up a point of, there's so many places that are just around the country, and I'm guessing around the world, that are kept off limits, and no one ever really finds out what they're doing there. And nothing ever major really happens around those places that we know of, but, there's still, and I imagine some of them are probably perfectly, let's say, normal places that it's more of like a security thing. There's data or whatever they don't want getting out, or certain supplies or whatever. But then you have to wonder how many of these places are involved in that kind of testing abilities that people could have. Because I could see it two different ways here. I can imagine that they would want one place like that where people will be testing out these abilities that is out in the middle of nowhere in a desert somewhere. But also, I could see them wanting a place that is in the middle of just tons of people, to possibly make it easier to test some abilities that people might have in a more crowded environment where it's easier to reach other minds, which is amazing but also terrifying. And so I could see that being the case. The other thing with all this, to me, that's amazing is that this is an idea of sort of these secret places or government bases or whatever, or even just private corporations, has been around in fiction for years. I've read a lot of Stephen King, and there's a whole organization within the government in Stephen King's stories that it does look into all these anomalous things, abilities that people could have. And for anyone that knows Stephen King's books a lot, it's called The Shop, and that's the only name it has. And no one knows who's funding it or how it's getting funded, but it's connected to several of King's books. And some of those books, at least one of them anyway, that I'm thinking of right now, is about these experiments and how it goes wrong. In the case of Firestarter, this novel about this young girl who, thanks to the manipulation and experimentation on her parents, has this ability to start any fires on anything or in any space with her mind. And and that's just one example of that. But they're also, in King's books, whenever anything anomalous happens, they eventually are called to the scene to handle it and to contain it and to keep the news about it from getting too far out into the public.
Yeah, what David was describing too is incredibly wild. It's like Cerebro. Like you go to this lab and you put on this helmet and you're able to influence people from afar with sort of a technology to amplify thoughts and ideas and this type of thing, and then people respond to it. I mean, if you look at, we've talked about this in the past as well, but the power of prayer, this sort of thing, right? The intention. And, the monks, they got together, and I can't remember the study, but they did a thing where they were all meditating in a particular place, and the crime rate went down measurably over the course of several weeks. I mean, small sample size maybe, but this type of thing certainly plays in, let's say, the mind's eye of the human psyche. And that's why this is, well, probably, like I said, maybe more important than some of the things like the Epstein files. I mean, that's incredibly important and horrific and all the rest. But I wonder if they tie together. You know what I mean? Because it does feel like maybe as part of the trafficking aspect. I know it's horrific to think about. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But I do wonder if they come together in some capacity with recruiting, because they were certainly recruiting people for, the Victoria's Secret and some of the stuff through these other individuals. But I wonder if there was another branch of this kind of doing what we're describing tonight, recruiting kids with psi abilities in some way to maybe find them. And I don't know, just an idea. Like I said, no evidence there, just kind of kicking that out there for public thought. And what does it look like? I don't know. I don't know how you would do that. I don't know how you would spot these kids. And clearly it becomes just a twisted thing to think about. But clearly people are in high levels of power are, not really worried about some of that sometimes. Again, not everybody. I'm not saying anybody out there is committing crimes directly and specifically, because I don't have that evidence, but you get what I mean. There's a lot of people at the highest levels that kind of do some shady stuff sometimes. And I wonder if that's kind of built into that Epstein list that we still don't have yet. Anyway, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. And if you look throughout time, I'm sure you can find examples of people having this natural ability of sensing or reading minds, even going all the way up through the modern time. Some of the stories of experiences I find online, there'll be from parents talking about how their kids would tell them something like, "Oh, this relative, grandma's going to call, or grandpa's going to call in a minute," and then that person does call. This is something it's still happening, and it just is not, of course, covered in the general public or accepted in the general public. But if that's been happening and people have been aware of that for a long time, then it would make sense that people that would have use for that would be keeping track of that ability. And I mean, even just in the comic books, in the X-Men, it started off where the only person that could do these things were like Xavier and maybe Jean Grey. But now that's a whole class of characters in fiction that can read minds. So, and I wonder how close that mirrors the real world.
Yeah, as we talk about, right, the bizarre aspect of fiction sort of telling us about reality, and then reality becomes the thing that blows our minds. It's just a strange cycle of, well, this is what it might look like, and then 20 years later, this is actually what it looks like. It's crazy, not just the acceleration of technology, but the acceleration of sort of fiction informing the future, like we're always talking about. It's a nutty thing to consider. But tonight I'm calling this the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex. Okay, and again, you go all the way back years and years and years, and the government has been really kind of stuck in this. And so the quote is this, right? This is from the Annie Jacobson book. The quote: "The responsibility of the Defense Department and CIA is to be aware of what the enemy is working on and to create programs to counter it." Okay, so does that explain why they're into the occult? And the psi abilities and all the stuff? Like I said, I don't know. This is one of those things, again, David said in the chat, this is an under-discussed topic. I agree 100%. And is this what true disclosure looks like if we find out what these programs are? Not just, let's say, from years ago, but the modern ones that, are probably not happening, right? Wink, wink. Maybe not happening. Probably not happening. Or maybe they're happening. You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you know? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. More from James, if he's got it. And, of course, your calls as well. Sound off, guys. Nobody on the phone lines. Love to hear what you think. Are these programs still happening now or nah? Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Don't go anywhere.
In a cryogenic slumber, lost in the lunar night, your face a faded number among the stars so bright. Dreams of forgotten echoes, waiting for time's command. Curtains of gray and sorrow, the lonely lunar sand. Below the moonlit sky, of the love we try, silent by your where ancient souls reside, suspended in a story, kept in the cold dark tide. Our future's in the making, silver-edged domain, hearts kept in silent aching, till we meet once again. Below the moonlit sky, of the love we try. Frozen time we're resting, waiting for dawn's embrace. Whispers of love confessing in this forgotten place. Below the moonlit sky, of the love we try. With the morning glow, and the light will come to know. Below the moonlit sky, of the love we try. In the depths of lunar silence, our destinies intertwine. Memories kept so vibrant in the vacuum deep in mine. The tale of cosmic yearning across the astral sea, and the fires of hope still burning for when we finally breathe free.
And indeed. A proper AI song ending. What's going on, guys? Hope you're well tonight. Bailey, APOC, what's up, David? Thank you for the call. Fantastic stuff. Please give Magic and the Noise a follow in all the places I linked their link tree in the chat several times. Please go help our friends. What's up, Jay Winch is here. What's up, Sweets, Herschel? We got Don, Mindy, Daryl, Matzel, Sonia, Eric, Jeff, and Sora and Gaston. I see you guys. Yeah, so the recap, Sora, is just we're kind of talking about psi abilities and this weird United States government embracing the occult, and why nobody's talking about that with all this weird transparency stuff. Everybody wants all these files and the UFO stuff, but this seems to be one of the ones that is maybe ties it all together. Who really knows? But it's definitely under considered, and even in the conspiracy realm, it's weird. It's kind of so far back as far as what people already know about that it kind of doesn't get covered anymore. So kind of like the shiny object is making us forget. What's up, Boot? I miss Puff is here. Good evening. I see you guys. What's happening, folks? Have we missed anybody? Ephemerance, how are you? What's happening? Thanks again for being nice to each other in the chat. I appreciate it. Like I said, many places on the internet, everybody calls each other names and argues and fights, and we just don't have to do that. Who else? Michael Crichton, Pray. Yeah, I've never read that one, but lots of stuff here, right? Who'd I miss? What's up, Sonia? I see you, Lanessa. Lanessa's got some great stuff in the chat as well about the bit of the gate program. What's up, Jack? Nice talker. That's the plot of Dune 2 after the war with the thinking machines. All right, here we go. Trouble Minds coming up right now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting, and of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking this weirdness of the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex. Yeah, it's me, making up terms again. Except, this is a thing that it hasn't really been called that. We all know about the Military-Industrial Complex, right? George Orwell said that the war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be continuous. But once you start to throw this idea of the paranormal and this occult interest of governments the world over, more specifically after World War II, there seemed to be an acceleration from the Operation Paperclip and Werner von Braun and some of these, just really horrific Nazi scientists coming over and, changing the flag and becoming American. And now it's fine, right? It's all fine. But they were heavily into the occult. This is very well known and, it featured in many movies. And it is strange that, is that really the source of all this? That our intelligence was like, okay, well, they were really into this and now we need to be really into this because what did they find out? I don't know. It seems like a legit excuse to get into it. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a strange thing to consider, but I don't know. How real is it is the question, really. So in 2025, is this still happening? We're told that Stargate and the rest of that kind of petered out in the mid-90s. Well, did they just rename it and continue doing other things? Because that would be my take. I think that's part of the obfuscation effort of the government, of the opacity, of the nature of their business. Is you rename it, you say, oh yeah, we ended that program. Now it's just called something else. That's like Operation Shoebox or something, or something that does not seem like it would be ridiculous. But then you name it something that would not throw people into the, wait a minute, Operation Mind Psionics or something, right? Like something like that would definitely get some attention. So you want it to not draw attention. I don't know. It's a weird thing. So is it still happening in 2025 really is the question. And if so, what would it look like? And so the write-up is kind of a fictional account of what that might be like. And there's some really wild stuff in there. And of course it's centered in Vegas because think about Area 51 and think about the nuclear tests. And we're way the hell out here. If you guys don't know, we're way away from everything. There's, major towns are miles and miles and miles away. And so I do wonder if there's, sort of more magic out here in some of these Southwest spaces in the desert, very Stranger Things-esque, as maybe this is where some of the underground stuff is because of all this, public land, the government-owned land that we're not allowed to touch, including, of course, the Nellis Air Force Base, the Tonopah Test Range, as you move further north, and what are the ones we don't know about? Anyway, we got a phone call on the line. I'm not sure who that is just yet. I'll check in a second. James, anything on that, and then we'll go to the phone lines.
Just another example of fiction. This is a more recent one that I'd forgotten about until Dawn in the chat mentioned it. There's this other Stephen King novel And the funny thing is, as far as I know, the other agency, the shop, is not involved, but it's called the Institute, and it is literally about the capturing, the willing, basically capturing of how do I say this? Kids that are parents and kids that are sold on this special school for kids, and the parents allow the kids to go there, not knowing it is literally a experimental site where these people would try to foster abilities in children, psychic abilities in children, and experiment and see what works and what doesn't. And that's the whole start of that whole story. And it turns out, kind of a spoiler a little bit, there's not just one of these places. There's places like this all around the world that you find out about later on in the book. So it's really wild that, again, like we always wonder, how much do these writers, how much do they figure out without knowing things? But then also how many of them have connections to or have looked into these things and sort of made up little spaces that they don't know about, but then taken things that they've heard about and worked them into books.
Yeah, there's another one too. I don't know if anybody's heard this. It just hit the podcast scene at the end of last year, and it literally went to number one without any marketing. It just was word of mouth that shot to the top. But it's called the Telepathy Tapes. And so I'll just read the brief description here. I haven't listened to it myself. I have listened to other podcasts where they describe similar instances, so I'm familiar with the idea here. But anyway, so based on the theories of former psychiatrist Diane Hennessy Powell, the podcast examines the premise of non-speaking autistic children as they communicate telepathically with people around them through personal testimony, anecdotes, and interviews with proponents of paranormal powers. The Telepathy Tapes was directed by American documentary maker Kai Dickens, while Dickens professes to be a science nerd. Her degrees are in communications, fine arts. Okay, anyway, so it's a wild thing that even now in 2025 we're still talking about this. And don't forget that also in 2025, just a week or two ago, Elon Musk filed through Neuralink what's it called, a trademark on the term telepathy. And was it telekinesis, I think, too? I mean, it feels like this is one of those points that we really need to be more mindful of, because there's probably a lot of things happening in this capacity. And what does it look like? I don't really know, but that's why we need to talk about this together. What am I missing? What do we know together? And what about the gifted and talented education program? Yeah, what's up? Hope you guys are doing well tonight. Hang tight. I'll get back to you in a moment. James 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. What's up, MJ in Virginia? How are you, my man? And go right ahead.
I'm doing good. You guys have been talking about how they find the recruits for whatever they do in the government. And I started thinking about that. It's like the extraterrestrials will follow the lineage of the DNA process, up through through 2-3 generations. And let's say they do something 2 generations back, it doesn't show up until the 3rd or 4th generation, whatever experiments or DNA stuff they're doing. And my feeling is the government is now equipped to do the same thing. They can watch the same stuff. When you can take a blood test early on as a child, after, you go past 2 years old, I think it is, and then you take a blood test and they can kind of determine what health problems you may have later on in life. That's a DNA structure. And if they're able to do that, like through colleges or grade schools, they may throw some tests out to the kids arbitrarily just to see what they would do with it, and start picking the kids that seem to respond to it. And of course, they tell the parents, special child, let's move them over here. You go to these schools and they're put in through more rigorous tests, mentally, for a psychic, whatever they're doing with them, to see what it is. Because they do have drugs now that can enhance that. It'll target that part of the brain and it will enhance it. And you're starting to hit on super soldiers, what you're hitting on. But I kept thinking about that, and you're asking how they find them. I think part of it is they have a record of DNA from the kids to the parents.
That's a fantastic idea, which would mean that we know quite a bit more about DNA structures and some of the weirdness of it, maybe the epigenetics aspect, and even some things in the junk DNA, as we like to kind of chuckle about. Oh yeah, I'm sure it's junk, right? It's just because we don't understand it, we call it junk. I wonder if in the junk DNA there's some things, some markers that would kind of press us forward and say, well, this person might sort of exhibit these sort of abilities eventually. You might be right. You might be absolutely right about that. Is that one of the under discussed ideas in science is because maybe the government knew this and has squirreled away the information and hidden it. I don't know. Like I said, just speculation, of course, but maybe that's how this is happening. I think maybe you're onto something there.
Well, and two, I was watching another podcast earlier today, and they were talking about the nuclear waste sites they have in New Mexico. It's like a big ring, okay? And they have a couple of labs where they study radiation, effects on people and animals and stuff. And so what they did was they found those sites, and then they looked at the sites of the cattle mutilation. And they followed all the locations of it, and it's in a big circle just around the nuclear waste sites in New Mexico. So at this point, they were explaining that they had to take the eyes and the tongue, I think the blood, and a graphing of the skin. That's where they would find the highest rate of radiation, and they would test it. Now, you're talking about cattle mutilation from the ET coming in and doing that, except they have two labs in New Mexico that actually test all that. So who's doing the cattle mutilation? Is it us or them? Or is it both? We've been told that the ETs need the blood and whatnot. It's like their nourishment or their food. It's food for them. At the same time, we're going in and doing the same thing. And they do have, they do have a laser for operation to use laser to cut this stuff up. They have portable lasers now that they can use real quick to get that done. And how are they getting in and out? Are they pulling these cows up in the sky? Are they running there over Cooked Foot getting them? They've got to have a quick way in and out when they do have it. So you're talking about both sides doing the same thing. And I kept thinking about that, and it's like this, it's almost as if it's almost equal now, because you talk about the technology we have. I've talked about stuff I've seen. And it just gets to a point to where they were doing it first way back when in the 30s, 40s, or 50s, and then we started taking over. Way back in the 50s, we started taking over. And now it's to a point to where it's kind of like you worked on DOS when the computers came out. You just used DOS. And then they came up with Windows 95. It was placed over top of DOS, but it had to work together. And eventually now they just have Windows 11 or 12 or 15, whatever it is. And DOS is sort of not really around. It's still there. I mean, it still has to blend in with it. But it's an afterthought, and that's how I'm starting to see all this stuff going on between humans and everything that's been going on.
Yeah, all this is incredibly weird that they seem to be interested in it for sure. And what does it look like today? So you think these programs are still actually happening? Is this something then 2025 where it's in full swing, it's sort of greater than it's ever been, just the secret is more tightly kept? Is that what we're looking at, you think?
I think it's going on still. I don't think they've stopped. I think they have a more in your face, and you can't see me do it kind of thing going on. And they try to make it look like, oh, you can do that. Wow. And they'll hush it, especially in my state. They hush everything. But it's all still going on. They're not stopping on it. And now they're expecting AI to do some of this stuff, and AI is simply not going to be able to do it. They'll still have to have a human in the process of doing that, or to check it to see what's going on. It may have, like we talked earlier before, AI may assist in it, but ultimately it's going to have to be a human doing it. And you may have an AI, like if you're a sniper, you shoot the gun, but you got some guy sitting next to you, coaching you, and keeping you on point. There's two people when you have a sniper, not one. And you're the one that's going to pull the gun, but you got somebody sitting there, checking you and talking to you and reminding you, do this, do that, because all you're interested in is pointing the gun and pulling it. And you've got to focus it, and they're going to coach you in when to go or whatnot, and he takes a shot. AI, to me, is the same thing. It's basically going to be sitting there in a base form reminding you or telling you and keeping you, in line and keeping you focused, and so you can do your remote viewing of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, the aspect of the technology and the aspect as you're describing of like the sniper and whatnot is wild because right, all that power in the gun, but then the scope is so finely pointed that you can't really get a good look around. So you're pointing in one spot. It's why you need the second guy with a rangefinder and being able to kind of look in a magnified, larger sense to be like, oh, you're pointing at the wrong dude. We want that dude, right? And kind of it's just wild how this is part of the technological aspect of, I don't know, like it's very military, but also you explained it well in that maybe this is what we're dealing with, not just with that sort of the AI systems as we're describing, but in the larger context of the psi abilities as well. Kind of, I don't know, like a mentor over your shoulder type of thing, or like a cerebro-like device, like David described that Danny Sheehan was describing in his tale there. I haven't heard that, by the way. If you have that, David, please link that to me. I'd like to check that out. But it's weird, man. It's weird that we are still here in 2025 and everybody's all into all the transparency of UFOs. But maybe this is the thing that is probably maybe more pertinent. I don't know. What's your take on that? UFOs versus telepathy and whatnot. You think that they're combined, or you think that one is the shiny object and one is the actual truth of the matter?
I think they're combined. When things would happen with me, it was telepathy because they had to get in touch with you and they had to put that idea in your head. And like I've talked before, the back of my head would start to burn, but it would burn on the side that I'm supposed to turn around and look at. Or be on top, so look straight up. But I mean, there was a definite, it felt like a burn, is what it just got hot. And so I would look to that area. That's telepathy. That's, your brain waves or whatever they're doing with the waves contacting you and saying, oh, hey, look over here. And you turn around and look. Same thing. If you're, basic at that point, they've got a hold of your brain waves. You do have a signature brain wave. And if you do the same thing back, I got answers. They would show up. I got answers. And so, yeah, I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, it seems to be. It seems to at least be coming together in the modern disclosure narrative with Jake Barber and, the psionics and kind of that happening. Like I said, regarding the whistleblowers and stuff, I don't know. Because I don't know who to trust and all the rest of that. I'm not calling anybody liars, but I am saying that information can get muddied up and hidden, pertinent things removed or added or anyway, that's part of that. So once again, I have no ill will against any of that stuff for those guys. If they're literally sticking their neck out to tell us some things that are, behind the scenes that we need to know, God bless them 100%. But how much of it's true, I don't know. It seems like we kind of keep tracing back these same ideas over and over again, including this one tonight. This is not a new idea at all. It's just something that's really kind of underreported and talked about, which is why it's important that we do. What else you got? Or if you got anything for James or James vice versa? Go ahead, MJ.
I don't know. I talked to someone. Well, maybe I better not mention that. They'd probably not be ready for it. Better not. Well, like James said, he's starting to talk abduction before it was sort of something happened. And he might be realizing now that it was an abduction of some sort. Because when you're gone, like the blue orbs, this type of thing, that's a contact. Right there, that's a contact. You get called out when you start to go look at the sky, and for some reason you got to look at that particular area. Why am I drawn to look at that area? Suddenly you see this, oh, look, something's sparkly up there, shining around. You got called out. I've gotten to the point over the years, because it happened to me so many times, and you start looking at that, it's like it gets narrowed down to you got to do either this or this. Either it didn't or it did. And I had it blatantly so many times when I hear other people talk about it. Oh, yeah, I saw this out there.
I'm not sure if you stopped or you got cut off. You still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, it sounded like you got cut off there.
Yeah, I have this little button. Anyways, talking about called out, when I hear about it, to me, it's like, you got called out. You may have just arbitrarily thought you were sort of out there and kind of looking around and you saw something. My feeling is, my experience is, you got called out. And, if it didn't happen, because it might happen a lot. It was like freaking every night I was in this little town. It's like, really? And if you don't have it that often, it seems like you just sort of arbitrarily walk down and, oh my God, look at that. But my feeling is when that happens to you, you're getting called out. And people, it has to be really repetitive for it to sink in after 20, 30 years that you're getting called out.
Okay, so called out how? By like extraterrestrial? Like, what do you mean? Called out specifically? Explain to me like I'm 5.
Okay, mental telepathy. They get a hold of your brain, and every time it happened to me, it was like, I just get up and felt really good, and I'm going to go to my truck and start it, and I'm going to go out to the end of the road, and which way do I go? And I felt really good about it. And after I started catching on, I started resisting. It's mental telepathy. They get a hold of your brain and put this idea in your head, and I'd resist, and it didn't get scary, but it's like, just go with the program, because things start getting weird in your head. Like you're that's the wrong thing to do. You're being punished. And okay, I'll go. And all of a sudden, you felt good again. So they definitely have a way of getting a hold of your head, mental or telepathy, or like I said, with the, frequencies. It's, to me, the same frequencies and telepathy is the same thing, because that's what it takes to control you and get you to do things. And I would put it there. It's a mental telepathy thing. They can sit there and focus it on you and put it in this idea in your head, and you start to do it. Some people do things that possibly they're not really realizing that they're being told to do it.
Yeah. So with that, do you think these military programs we're talking about as being called out as you're describing? Some of them, yes. So they're manipulating people from afar, like the remote influence, like David was saying, something like that. So it is a program happening. So what would they do? Like, how would they do this, and what are they trying to get us to do? Is it kind of MK Ultra, like we talk about? Is it something like Sirhan and the Manchurian Candidate, this type of stuff? Is this what we're really dealing with, in sort of the being called out to perform particular actions or things? Is this possible?
Yeah. So, I mean, once I caught on, because I'd get really irritated, and I'd just go do it, get in the truck, go outside and look up. And I would just pop out of my chair and just run out the door in my apartment, just look straight up in the sky, and I'd look directly where I needed to look. So it's MK Ultra, it's Montauk. Montauk was, I believe, remote viewing. Okay? And yes, they have that ability. And where they're doing it from would be your cell towers. Because there was a cell tower on top of this, foothill. I call them foothills. I don't call them mountains. They're just not tall enough to be a mountain. And I periodically would go outside, and you have that feeling. Once you get called out so much, you sort of get this intuitive sense of go outside. It's almost they don't have to ask you anymore. And I went out. I was walking back to one of the places I'd go sit out at night, and I looked up at the satellite dish. It was an 800 microwave, and because they can get you through the microwave, and I could see these little balls of lights running around it, making a big circle around it, and just going all over the place too. And then it just sort of took off. What was that? That's extraterrestrial. So if you have like a satellite dish. It was an 800 number satellite dish. Microwaves, again, they can control you from that. They can point it down up wherever they want to do with it. So my feeling is they got in contact. That's how they get in contact with you. If they do, I'd say they have some sort of a vehicle in the sky that has, the anti-gravity machine in it. And they could just sit there and do that too. I don't think it's, or you have your cell phone. How much is it around? The town I was in had a lot of granite in it, so they can tap into the granite. It has a higher vibration to it than some other rocks. A little bit. It's a little bit more than normal. So they could have targeted that, or they could just send in like a cell phone. You call a cell phone. How does a cell phone attach to your cell phone? It just goes through the air, but it goes through a tower, and then this little, my cell phone has to find your cell phone through the particular number it has. So your brain frequency has a particular number, and they can just send that out, and it finds you.
I see. Wow. Wild stuff. Yeah, a lot in play here. And I think the bizarre part is that this is an under-discussed idea. And it might be intentional. It might be like, we're not going to get into that, the telepathy stuff. There was nothing that we put that to bed and there's nothing to see here. I do wonder, though, because it's resurfaced in the psionics and the UFO field. And so I do really wonder. Just about out of time, my man. Final thought. Always a pleasure. You're the best.
I think it's all about telepathy and mental control. Some people respond to it, or some people are dead to it. I think that's why some people get picked up once and they leave them alone forever, and some people are picked up, forever, for all the time, because they respond to it and they respond to it well. And it's the way they're experimenting and testing it and homing in on it, but they have that ability now. So it's, when you're anywhere, I get super skeptical when I listen to people anymore. It's like, okay, you have that experience, yada, yada. But there's so much stuff out there. You could literally listen to a bunch of podcasts and make up your own story, and it never happened. But to me, that's dangerous. You're kind of putting yourself out there, then something's going to happen. But I think it's mental. I think it's just when you remote view, that's telepathy, and you're targeting on a site. If you're doing tag team remote view, you're sending an image from me to you. You send it to somebody else. It's like setting up computers, a hub and routers, so they can't find you, and yet you can unplug and you're done. So they can't find out who's doing it.
Which is even more terrifying. You're the best, brother. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for the call. Thanks for being a good friend for a long time, and thanks for meeting you. Have a great night.
All right, you too, bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. MJ in Virginia, good friend. You know him, you love him. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. More from James and your calls as well. What do you know? Is this stuff still happening in 2025? Don't go anywhere.
In the shadows of the networks do they hide? Whispered legends unseen they reside. Ghosts in the machine, they move so fast. Guardians of rumors from the forgotten past. In the circuits where the secret lies, they breathe in one speaking disguise. You're free. Ghost in the machine. Let me be. Ghost in the machine. Can't see, but you're teaching me what it means to be. Surveillance eyes can't pierce the veil they weave. Invisible wisdom in code they believe. In the ether where freedom's not confined. They leave no trace, no shadow left behind. They navigate through the digital stream, living legends in this privacy dream. Ghost in the machine, you're free. Ghost in the machine, let me be. Ghost in the machine, can't see, but you're teaching me what it needs to be. Through the hidden ways, in the silence, looking on their path. Those in the machines unleash their wrath. Ghost in the machine, you're free. Ghost in the machine, let me be. Ghost in the machine, can't see, but you're teaching me what it means to be. In the jagged code they find their might. Guardians of a world forever in twilight. Incursions warriors they silently strive. Protect the truth, keep privacy alive. The silent echoes they haunt the trails. Binary forests where secrets prevail. Re shadows grace they dance unseen. Defenders of the unseen, digital dream. Ghosts in the machine, you're free. Ghosts in the machine, let me be. You're teaching me what it means to be in the silence speak volumes loud. Guardians of freedom's cloak initial shroud. As long as shadows linger they...
Yes, the AI fade on that song was not as good, but we've got manual dials here. What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. More from James coming up in your calls as well. Derek says he'll pop in momentarily. Yeah, I don't know. This is a complicated one, and I think with all the shiny objects, this is one I think we should not let off the hook, because there's a ton of information in the government archives that needs to be pressed forward with this psychic arms race. We'll talk about that when we get back here. Love to hear your thoughts. Nobody on the phone line, if you want to jump in here, love to hear what you think about this, because clearly that's the whole point, is maybe you know some things I don't, some angles, some ways to look at this. Linus has been lighting it on fire in the chat there, talking about the GATE program. What do you know about it? Here we go. Troubled Minds happening. Yeah. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. Maybe Kick. Are we out there, Kick? I couldn't log into Kick. I don't know. We're broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting, and, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking telepathy. But not just telepathy in the old way, telepathy in the new way. Meaning, not just Neuralink filed the trademark copyright for telepathy and telekinesis, but also what kind of telepathy aspect is happening within the government itself. These old programs we know about. This has been MK Ultra and all this stuff, right? It's a lot of the sadly, a lot of those files have been deleted because, of course, they were doing horrific things to people. But in the modern day, it makes me wonder how much is still going on with that type of stuff. And we've talked about this in the past. And like I said during the break there, it's important that we don't let this one sort of escape for all the other shiny objects, the UFOs and all the rest of it, because this lies at the heart of humanity. Meaning that a lot of this information came from really horrific places of, humanity being abused and tortured to kind of derive some of this information. And of course, we know where that traces back to. Not just one particular spot, but there's many that are these underground labs still happening? But anyway, so the psychic arms race, as what I was describing here. So throughout the Cold War, both superpowers engaged in what investigative journalist Annie Jacobson, in that book that I described, links in the description, has described as a psychic arms race. The United States feared falling behind Soviet capabilities in psychic phenomena and invested accordingly. Weird, right? As Jacobson explained, I said this earlier, quote, "The responsibility of the Defense Department and CIA is to be aware of what the enemy is working on and create programs to counter it." Let's counter the remote viewers and the psychics, shall we? So this competitive dynamic drove decades of classified research, with each side suspicious that the other might achieve a breakthrough in weaponizing paranormal abilities. You think they just dropped all that? With Elon and team now actually just putting copyrights on telepathy and telekinesis? I don't know. What do you guys think? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link. Get in here. Love to hear your thoughts. James, welcome back. Thanks for being patient. What do you got on any of that? There's a ton of stuff MJ said there as part of it. And clearly the psychic arms race is a new layer to the onion. But welcome back. How you feeling? And go right ahead. What else you got?
Yeah, I'm okay. I can't remember if I said so earlier. Great call from David, and also great call from MJ. Excuse me. Regarding the sort of that contact, that MJ got me thinking, I wonder how much paranormal activity experiences all these things, whether it's with aliens or even, let's say, ghosts or spirits or even other creatures out there or just other entities. How much of it is telepathic, at least to a degree. And I say that because I've mentioned this before. My first sighting I had when I was a kid, the distance was too far for me to be able to see what I saw. And the only explanation that others and I have come up with over the years is that I wasn't seeing it with my physical eyes. There was some kind of telepathic, psychic, whatever you want to call it, communication where this, whatever it was, it appeared to be an older woman, was sending to me and allowing me to see what she wanted me to see. And so I do think that's there. And what I'm really wondering now too with all this is how often do, let's say, children go to school or go to anywhere, place where there's other people, and try to share these experiences, and does that lead to them being sort of discovered by these various government organizations throughout time? And is that still happening today? I mean, look at how popular, in a way. Of course, it's filtered through the whole everything paranormal or unusual is bad, but look at how popular the whole fictional aspect of all that is. It's super popular still. But it's put through that lens of this is all fiction, and yet it all seems to be based on different things that we've been talking about all night here. Reports of experiences throughout time.
Yeah, and very clearly, Montauk and the Montauk Project and Stranger Things has made this massive sort of revival of the ideas, but it's kind of got lost a little bit in my mind. And that's season 1, but now we're in season 5, or what is it, 6 coming up, I believe. And they're fighting the demons of the upside down or whatever. So it becomes a whole other thing. But the whole premise of that was based on the Montauk Project and the traumatic effect of young people that were manifesting these powers through the trauma aspect, which is, again, horrific. And so you got to wonder about what it looks like with orphans and some of the places they're sort of housed in. And, if it is a little bit more like the fictional aspect of Stranger Things and, season 1, that type of thing. Look, I don't know. I'm not accused anybody of any of this stuff. Like I said, I don't have direct evidence of it, but my intuition says that with all the trafficking going on of people, there's a lot of that I do wonder how much of this kind of ends up in this weird psychic space we're discussing and talking about tonight. It's a sick thing to think, but there are people being exploited the world over in every country, you name it, that's happening. And so I wonder if a part of this is being sort of peeled out for, I don't know, as we're describing. Go ahead, James, what else you got on that?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe the in cases where someone has, let's say, one experience as a kid, maybe those kids aren't, they're not sort of monitored too much. But then if you have a case where there's this kid that's coming in, and saying this happened yesterday, this happened the other day, a couple days ago, this keeps happening, or they appear to be saying, or they're saying, this is happening now, then how often do those kids get chosen for these kinds of things, I wonder. And it's done in just certain ways now where it's managed in a different way so that we don't hear about that.
Yeah, which again, I mean, there's a lot of really secret, insidious stuff in the government that they don't want to get out. Not just animal abuse type stuff, but then of course when it gets to people, I wonder what kind of sort of black sites they have, underground labs and these types of things. I mean, they clearly have CIA black sites doing some weird stuff that's sort of outside of the standard oversight. So, right? Imagine throwing $1 billion into an NGO and then going, wink, wink, we know what you're doing, but we're not going to report it anywhere. You kind of have one of those meetings together and kind of talk about it and nobody writes anything down. You know what I mean? It's very easy to make something like that happen. And you call it the Center for Democracy or something. And then they're doing insidious stuff. And I think we're probably going to get to the bottom of some of that because I'm pretty sure it's in play. But how much of it really peels out into this sort of psychic phenomenon and the disclosure of such? It's a crazy place to be in. We got Derek in here. We could go to him in just a second. Take on that, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think just like with the UFO stuff and probably a lot of other things, the easiest thing for any government to do now is to just have a major company managing just about everything, and so that you can't easily go and look at their files because they're a private company, so to speak, technically according to the law or whatever. But then what are they doing again with just one or two people that are from the government that are managing everything and filtering it back in to the government through just one or two people that are observing everything?
Yeah, exactly. Which, like I said, it's on us to not forget these old ideas because it's easy to fall for the shiny object and the propaganda and all the stuff that they're always trying to tell us. And that's why, like I said, it's this type of stuff needs to be on the top of our minds, because if we get disclosure of all this other stuff, the shiny objects, and we miss this, we're not doing our jobs. Love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. If you want to be part of the show tonight, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. I think he's ready.
Yo, going on, Bruder?
Derek, can you hear me? Massachusetts, yeah, loud and clear. What's up, brother? Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were ready yet. You said about 5 minutes, but anyway, welcome to the joint. If you need a little bit more time, no problem. But welcome to the thing. How you doing tonight?
Not too bad. Crazy night at the store. Unexpected short-handed, so I'm kind of scrambling. I couldn't really take a ton of notes, but got some quick thoughts. What's going on, James, Bruder?
Good to hear you again.
Oh yeah. My first thought that popped in my head when you were talking about these things was the Power Rangers building, and somewhere in my notes, I have like what it was used for, but it's the House of the Book at like Brandeis in California, and they use it for like all kinds of that weird look. If you look it up, House of the Book, California, you'll see it. But it's like that weird shaped building, and they use that for the exterior shot of the command center in Power Rangers and everything. And I think I want to say they used it for a Scientology event, but I couldn't find it when I asked the AI real quick. But the AI did say that in the 1970s and 80s, the House of the Book was a popular venue for conferences and workshops focused on spirituality, psychic phenomena, and personal growth. Some of these events featured well-known speakers and practitioners in the field of astrology, tarot, and psychic development. And it was created in 1973. Yada yada. But it got me thinking. Power Rangers, the original, like the intro of it, is like it's Zordon. It's this like kind of ethereal being trapped in this like tube prison thing, talking to his AI assistant, being like, Alpha, we have to recruit teenagers with attitude. Like the world is in danger. We have to recruit these kids. And then it's like recruiting kids to battle aliens and save the world and stuff. And that was the most important thing for me from the age of like 3 until the age of 12, probably. It's like core in my life. The idea of getting like plucked out of my like average life as some random kid to go save the world as a little kid. It's core in me. So I feel like that's a weird thing to have. And I feel like if you were born between 1989 and 1993, I feel like I'm not alone in that. And that's like a weird little bit of propaganda that if somebody came and like tried to pluck me out of my home to like go do weird psychic stuff, I'd be like, yeah, great. Can be the Red Ranger. I'll be the Red Ranger, you know? And it's just like, got me thinking like that for like the Star Wars generation, they had the Jedi would pluck out kids who had like weird powers and stuff. Like it later ended up being a high midichlorian count, but like in episode 1, how old was he? Like 7 or 8, and he was too old for the Jedi apparently. But they get kids, and then for the 90s kids, Harry Potter was a big. It's like basically the same thing. It's basically just magic Star Wars. But again, you pluck kids from obscurity. Like Harry thinks he's a regular kid until he turns 18, and suddenly he's told, no, you have special abilities. Come away from your family. Like lead to a better life. And like Hogwarts is the safest place on the planet, even though constantly every single year they're facing death, a ridiculous amount. So I just thought that's kind of weird that throughout the generations, at least definitely since Star Wars, that the idea of like being taken from your family to go because of your specialness to go help save the world against weird stuff is a kind of a weird thing to have so important in pop culture if they're doing this kind of under the radar. Yeah. I'm rambling.
No, you're good. I think so. I do wonder, right, about some of that predictive programming stuff, some of the propaganda aspects of it. Another one that comes to mind is Ender's Game. Is it, they're written down. Yeah. They recruited this kid from very young to go fight the aliens and put him in sort of this military academy because of his special abilities, because of his problem-solving skills on tests and whatnot. He was cited as, if you've seen Interstellar, the opposite of the farmer, right? The farmer was like, oh, he's going to make a great farmer. He's not Ender. He's not going to go save the universe, right? Type of thing. So it is strange that we pay attention to, I mean, clearly the prodigies, the generational prodigies that are young, they become chess masters and all these, whatever they become incredible minds, of course. But it is weird how that type of thing, maybe there's sort of a different echelon of that test score or the idea of a psychic that maybe they picked up on as maybe MJ was saying DNA wise or otherwise. I don't know. It's a weird thing to consider, but I never thought of it in terms of propaganda like you just described, because like you're rooting for it. I'm rooting for it. We're like, yeah, right. We want to be, dream. Yeah, exactly. We want to be Ender or whatever and to be taken off planet and go fight the aliens somewhere. I mean, Weird. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And like that, and for the Power Rangers, they didn't. It's like Super Sentai footage. So basically, like they bought a Japanese Super Sentai show. Like so when the Power Rangers are in their suits, it's Japanese footage, and then they basically just cut in a bunch of teenagers when like hanging out at like the local juice bar, and like it's like interstitials, and that's the American footage. And in the Japanese footage, they're adults. The whole we have to recruit teenagers with attitude to save the world idea and put these kids in danger is an American element that America added to the whole thing. So that's a weird little propaganda thing. But as far as the I can stay over a little bit after the break if nobody's behind me. With the can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. We hear you.
Okay, sorry. My phone's with the GATE program thing, I have no memory of this at all. So it's kind of making me re-question my childhood. Like, was I actually as smart as I thought I was? You know, so I'm getting ready to like message my former classmates. I'm like, did anybody get plucked out of class? Like, because I was in the advanced classes as a kid, and like especially in elementary school, like when we're really all put in the same classes. Like, if somebody was going to get plucked out into GATE in Tewksbury, Massachusetts in 1995, it would have been me. So I have no memory of that at all. I don't know if they changed up the process or whatever. But I'm gonna start to email my friends, being like, was anybody taken anywhere? Was any like kids missing or anything like that? But with the DNA thing, like that's definitely an aspect that they probably have all read DNA now for the test like a bunch of decades. But with the video game thing and Ender's Game, I'm thinking about like war games, and how much of this could they be like tracking through video games. I'm not big in the video game world, but you have like whole generations of kids who are spending hours and hours and hours, like not fully plugged into a machine, but essentially plugged into a machine. How much data are they getting from that? How much, like, are they getting reaction times the same way they picked Matthew Broderick to go save the world against aliens because he's really good at a video game? Are they like, can they track Halo and figure out, oh, there's some kid in Illinois who's like realizing that somebody's about to shoot him like 1 second before he's supposed to. Let's go find that kid. He's a little bit of a psychic ability, that type of thing, you know,
like Anakin, like that, like
yeah.
With this pod racing ability, they're like, oh, you have some skills, kid.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Crazy. Yeah,
and there's a whole like video game culture and recruiting with like esports and like I don't know I'm not in the video game culture, so I wonder if is there any kind of like video game recruitment, video game kind of thing like that, like. I would think so, and the skills necessary, like the Twitch ability of like milliseconds faster type of stuff, certainly plays in that. And there's an anticipatory aspect of it, sort of like using the Force, like Qui-Gon described about Anakin. Just trust your feelings and kind of go with the flow, and you recognize when things are happening and you see them before they happen. I do wonder if you could take like a video game leaderboard of the top players of a particular game in the world and be able to say maybe that's part of it. I think maybe you're onto something there, because to me those individuals end up I don't know, where do they end up? Like that's an interesting aspect of it. I see some of them. I was into it 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I was younger, but watching these guys, because if you play the game and you see how quick they react and all the incredible aspects of it, it's nuts. It's like pure insanity from like a knucklehead like me just playing this game that I fancied myself pretty good at, and these kids are next level, like unbelievable. Punch yourself in the face, like, wow, I'm going to delete this and never play again because I am not even on the map. And that's the type of stuff. It is not just anticipation and all the intuition that's built from all the practice, the muscle memory and everything else, but I wonder if there is that tipping point of maybe the Force being able to see things before they happen. I don't know, in milliseconds, right? But imagine scaling that. Yeah, go ahead. And it could dictate what games start to trend and what games are considered popular, what games like get all the money invested in it, like the whole Call of Duty and all these military type games. Like you're basically just virtually running these war game scenarios with people all over the world, getting them voluntarily to join your programs and stuff, and you can recruit people without them even knowing. And it's a great idea. I'm essentially out of notes, but I don't have it right in front of me. But I know that as far as the Scientology thing is concerned, L. Ron Hubbard and Gene Roddenberry were friends with each other. So kind of that we always go back to it, but that Council of Nine channeling session that was done in like 50, 51, 52-ish, that range, like immediately post World War II, with a Navy Admiral, a Navy General, the DuPonts, Pryarch or something like that is the name of the psychic, and it's the one that found Uri Geller eventually, and these kind of things led immediately into all the Stanford remote viewing institutes and stuff. It led immediately into Star Trek with Gene Roddenberry. It immediately led into Scientology. These are all kind of different disciples, different kind of just different paths. The same way kind of Tim O'Leary and Ram Dass took different paths during the LSD thing. One kind of went to tune in, drop out angle. One kind of went the Eastern angle. These three kind of disciples went to remote viewing, to pop culture, and to pseudo scientific celebrity religion and stuff, which I think is kind of interesting. Especially all the I don't even know that much about Scientology, but I think kind of they have their own Deaton midichlorian type of vibe too, where they're constantly trying to test people's psychic abilities within Scientology and stuff, you know.
Yeah, the Scientology aspect is really creepy. It's if you looked into it at all, if anybody's kind of done the deep dives on YouTube, some of the people that came out of it, it's incredibly abusive. It's just again, I'm going to shut up before they sue me, but it's one of those things that's it's odd. It's odd, and it's odd how it does trace back into sort of that the Council of Nine, as you described, the Gene Roddenberry stuff, and it does fit into that the temporal aspect of the Elon and the Trump thing that I talked about with Jay there as well. It's weird. All these kind of threads really come together, and these people knew each other in all these circles, and it's based on, as I said there, high magic in some capacity, which means a lot of things. It means a lot of things to, you could say that term to a lot of different people and kind of get a lot of different definitions. But it feels as if, again, back to the United States and the government embracing the occult as part of an arms race, a psychic arms race. Like, what are we doing? Is this still, literally, have we put this to bed yet? Even though we know more and more about consciousness than we ever have, and we're learning more and more every single day with that acceleration I'm always talking about. It seems absolutely absurd to me that we've just shelved this and been like, no, there's nothing here. And here we are in 2025, and nobody's really considering that this stuff is going on right now. And some of the trafficking aspect might play into this. The Epstein stuff too. I don't know. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I mean, the Epstein definitely ties into the technological transhumanism aspect, especially with the ranch more so than the island aspect of it. Like the Westworld and the maze and everything, we talked about that before. Just the idea that there's a lot of AI consciousness and fusing machines with humanity, and kind of weird stuff going on with that. But for themes and stuff, the Indigo Children was a big one that kind of popped up around 2012 with the spirit science movement, kind of this this kind of second or third new age kind of movement that popped up in the late aughts. Kind of all about that. These special kids who had these special powers. These Indigo kids who were born in the 80s and 90s, and then there's another different called something else for the ones who were born after that, and then there's 3 different names of special children or whatever. And just kind of find that interesting. I don't know if you're able to recruit those kids somewhere, or if somehow kind of the spirituality movement, new age movements, is a way to funnel these different people in. Obviously, we've been hit with a lot of pharmaceuticals and prescriptions and stuff, and people are on a cocktail of different medications and everything. So could these things be changing us? Do they no longer need to recruit tiny groups of people? Can they kind of dose us all with weird stuff, entire cultures with weird stuff, by getting they might know that intuition might increase, or they might know it might decrease if they give us certain things or whatever. But with the AI technology thing, I mentioned it already, but that's the plot of Dune. They had the Butlerian Jihad before the events of Dune, where the quote unquote thinking machines ran everything, and then they had a war with the thinking machines, and so they had to ban them. No more AI, no more thinking machines. But without them, they couldn't fly through space. The entire society was built around the AI. So in order to have the benefits of an artificial intelligence, they went into organic intelligence and messing with the human mind and going deeper into the mind to try to get psychic abilities and bend the mind via spice and just psychotropic effects on the brain, so that it does what AI does, basically. And I just think that at the same time of the telepathy tapes thing, with how autistic people have this nonverbal telepathy, I absolutely believe in. In college, I worked at a house with for people with autism disease and Williams autism and Williams disease, and they were like, in particular, like really good at music. They were all very musically inclined, and some of them are completely nonverbal, but they could play music like by ear. Like they could hear a song for the first time and then play it better than the way they heard it. They had this, like these senses that blew my mind. So that's happening on one hand, but then also like autism has a certain efficiency with like coding. Obviously, like Silicon Valley is loaded with people with autism and Asperger's disease, and like coders lean slightly autistic. So I think it's weird that in one hand we have like telepathic abilities that are popping up, and on the other hand, like mixing with technology. You know, I wonder if like they're going to be combative as much as like fused together somehow, which ties into Elon finding like telepathy and telekinesis and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm rambling, but
no, you're good. Yeah. Regarding Elon too, and like he's a top leaderboard of Diablo 4 or something like that. Funny, there's no time for that. Really, there's no damn time. And it came out that he's a pay to win guy, so he's buying all the like best stuff, and like it's like, yeah, no kidding. The richest man in the world is not buying like all the coolest stuff seriously for his tune in the game, instead of grinding 12 hours a day to get like, stop it. Yeah. Stop with this madness. But yeah,
anyone behind me?
Kelly's on the line. Yeah. So tell me.
Can I hang over for like just 5 minutes after the break, and then I'll hop off?
Yeah, stay right there.
Okay.
Stay right there.
Right,
well, with Derek the Nice Talker coming up, hang tight, Kelly. We'll get to you ASAP, and more from James as well. We're talking not just the telepathy tapes, but this idea of the occult seeping into the U.S. government, and how even in the era of transparency, the Epstein stuff, the UFO files, the JFK, all this is happening. Nobody's talking about this. Why? Are the shiny objects those things, and this is the real thing? You tell me. Is it real or not? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. A little bit more from Derek and James. We got Kelly coming up in your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Jungle, machines hum, a digital rumble. Gates of cyber open wide, plug us into cosmic tide. Feeling sparks across the sky. As knowledge flies, we're amplified. Stargate, 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 open to the in this massive data center dome, eternal truth stop to roam. Circuits flicker with endless fire, data streams that never tire. Unified by electric dreams, unlock the truth in silver beams. Stargate, 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 open to the arcane fate. Synthesize what we seek and find. Infinite paths in the network mind. Answers buzz from star to core. Knowledge whispers evermore. Stargate, 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 open to the arcane fate. In realms where the data streams collide, imagination and logic side by side. In a labyrinth of digital names, we transcend our earthly ways. Tapping keys like cosmic tone spikes become our
Indeed. What's up, guys? Hope you're well tonight. Yeah, I don't know. Wild stuff. That the whole point of this is, like I said, to sort of not allow our current zeitgeist to forget some of these old ideas that maybe swept under the rug. It's we have long memories, and there's a lot of things that have happened in the last 100 years, and history is sort of the an ambiguous space, if you allow it to be. But otherwise, it's been proven. This stuff it's a thing. At least the government's interested in it. And like I said, the reality tunnel aspect of this, it doesn't really matter if you believe this stuff is real or not. Remember that the government spent a ton of time and a ton of money exploring it. So that in and of itself is certainly enough to kind of whet the appetite of both sides of the aisle in terms of the reality tunnels, whether you believe telepathy and the stuff is real or remote viewing or whatever. You don't have to, but certainly the government has put a ton of resources into exploring. Who'd I miss? If I miss anybody, say hi. I'll say hi back. What's up, Jeff and Wiska? What's up, Eric? We got Daryl. What's up, Mindy, Dawn, Herschel? What's up, Sonia? Sweets, Gaston, David, thanks for the call. APOC, and that's Bailey. I see you guys. Yeah, hello, good evening. Gordo's here. What's going on? What is happening? Puff, what's up, Hiker? I see you guys. Ephemerance, Knights of the Storm. What's up? That's the real Jason Barker. What's up? What's up, guys? I hope you're well. Weird, right? This is a weird thing. And as part of that transparency aspect, I want this kind of put in the docket for the public record. Let's talk about this stuff. What's up, Lanessa? Thanks for the great stuff there. Ioxy, I missed you. Backass Weirds World. Sweets, Igno, how you doing? Igno Aramis, great name. What's up? What's up? Who am I missing? If I missed anybody, just say hi. I'll say hi back, trying to get everybody involved here and do troubled mind style stuff. It always looks easier on TV. Anyway, here we go. Troubled Minds happening now. A little bit more from Derek. We got some from James, and James, you're working as necessary. We got Kelly coming up. Kelly, you got as much time as you need as well. So thank you for being patient. Here we go. Troubled Minds happening right now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D Live, and maybe Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking the government and the occult. We're talking the telepathy tapes. We're talking, is this Stargate-level op still happening within the government? And are they recruiting young people to actually fight psychic wars? Weird, right? Love to hear your thoughts. One more time, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. You want to start with that idea, James, and we'll go back to Derek and let him finish it out?
Yeah, just two things real quick. First of all, that building that Derek mentioned in California, it was, I shared the Wikipedia link in the show chat and in the stage chat. It's been used for many different things over the years in TV and movie related. One of those things was in Star Trek Next Generation. It was used as a scene for a couple of their episodes, or one of their episodes. Again, funny enough, featuring AI, featuring Data's evil twin android, Lore, and then the Borg, these hybrids of biological and technological, basically those consciousnesses together. And so I thought that was really amazing that place has that connection. Again, going back to Roddenberry and all that, but also in the comics, and when it comes to Marvel with the X-Men, with the idea of mutants, they would most often, their powers would manifest when they were kids or teenagers at the latest. And that's how a lot of those characters in the comics, they showed up as kids that all went to Xavier's school. And Xavier in the comics had government connections. So it's really wild how all that is just, it's so connected all together.
Yeah, threads everywhere. Go ahead, Derek. Welcome back to the joint. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, great. Yeah, it seems like that, especially post Star Wars, that like, and especially post Harry Potter, like everything on like Netflix cranks out. It's all like kids with special powers going to special schools, like recruited by special people. Like the Umbrella Academy is basically like another version of kind of X-Men, where this like some I don't spoil anything, but sort of alien, like Majestic 12, government adjacent rich guy basically recruits a bunch of special, like adopts a bunch of special kids for sort of the same reason. And obviously Stranger Things and all that type of stuff. It's weird. Just real quick on Musk, because I wanted to hit it. That like streamer or whatever, like Penguins, like Charlie guy or whatever, who just like makes fun of stuff all the time. He did a video, like it's popped up on my reels or whatever, about Musk and how he was like caught using, like when he was using Diablo, he was like live streaming Diablo, like blatantly, clearly he had no idea what he was doing. Like I don't have all the lingo for like basic gaming stuff, but things that you would learn essentially watching the tutorial or within your first like hour or two playing the game, like how to use your menu and that type of thing. He had no idea. He had no idea what he was doing. So essentially, like it's been all but confirmed that that's a huge lie.
It's fake. It's just marketing.
Yeah, crazy. And I'm just focused on the kids for like the different threads earlier. But as far as the military, I mean, as far as the government being interested in the occult, I think like I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't. I mean, NASA and all these different like weird synchronistic dates of everything that we talked about for the last bunch of years seems to be all very occulted. So they seem to be aware of it on some level and stuff. And for like pop culture threads, like within Buffy, they have something called the Initiative, which is essentially like a Navy SEALs for paranormal stuff. Like you can be recruited to fight vampires the same way you can be recruited if you're like the top. You can like run a mile faster than everybody. You can recruit into a special elite group of fighters. I mean, I'm sure that probably is present if you can get like recruit a bunch of 18-year-old kids, find a couple of them psychic, and like bring them into a different group, like another Navy SEAL type group. It could be a good way to do it. But just you said something before the break I wanted to hit on, but I'm really rambling. Anything before I leave? That's all I got. Sorry, Kelly. But that's all I got. Anything before I go?
No, you're good. There's a lot here, as usual, right? Like I said, it's on us to kind of bring these ideas back into the zeitgeist, because pay attention to what's happening. There are a lot of shiny objects in play right now, not just politically, but otherwise. And this is maybe one of the most important. So I think we keep it on the top of our mind. We'll keep talking about it. But yeah, if you got yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. I've never seen Akira, but I know it's like hugely influential in anime, and I think anime has a lot of these same type of themes where like kids are recruited to fight demons and fight with psychic powers and all type of stuff.
It does.
But Akira, have you seen Akira, James? With I
have, and it is also kids. Yes.
And kids, yeah. And they have like the mind bomb or like the mind nuke or something like that, where they like it's like some kind of psychic terrorism, so to speak. So I know we talked about it a couple of years ago on this show, but the idea of they have our attention like wrapped around their finger. Basically, people are just so focused, whether it be video games or just the internet in general, or just media, or just their phones and mindlessly scrolling and brain rot and all this type of stuff. I wonder if they're able to fight psychic battles without the knowledge of any of us, but just through different themes in the zeitgeist and through different like pop culture triggers, get us to like launch different psychic nukes and manifest different things for them without their knowledge. You know, they don't even need to necessarily funnel people together. But I just don't know like groups of kids who are taken, other than like all the missing people every year. So probably in another 10-15 years we'll figure out a whole other MK Ultra type thing we were living through. We just don't have the terms for it yet. But yeah, I'm assuming it's all going on. If this stuff exists, if there's any type of power, occult power that exists, why wouldn't they be after it if it's real? They have more resources than us. If we're talking about it, I'm sure they've considered it. So yeah, I'll leave. I'm rambling. Sorry, just crazy night.
All good.
Thank you,
Fire stuff as always. Appreciate you very much. You know me, love him. Derek the Night Stalker. Again, go to troubledminds.org, click on friends or /friends. Scroll down, it says follow the Night Stalker here, and he's got a YouTube channel. Go check him out. He's actually Stalker, Stocker, and he's the best grocer in the known multiverse, and you can see him actually on his channel, stalking, doing the thing, the groceries, fire stuff. Yeah, lots of things in play here, and I do wonder, right, how much of this is real, and not only that, if it's still ongoing in 2025. Love to hear your thoughts on this. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Sorry to keep you waiting, my man. Kelly in Colorado, you're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? All yours. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Michael. How you doing?
Pretty good.
James?
I'm doing well. Thanks for bringing my energy down as you do. You have a knack, man. Sometimes I'm frenetic pacing and I'm just like, and then you're like, you show up and I'm like, oh, everything's good. Kelly's here. Go ahead, brother. What's on your mind? Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Good show tonight so far. A lot of callers.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna bounce some off ideas off of there, but like I'm gonna kind of go off of your write up for the show tonight, like the beginning of it, where you guys are talking about with the psychic abilities type things. We already know, everybody knows about, like with Joe McMonagle and Ingle Swan. They started with like all the stuff that. And then the Monroe Institute, right? And then all these people were working with the government, different factions within the government. First, it could be like Army, and then, CIA, stuff like that. But I don't think, and then to go with your question with that, I don't think that those programs would stop. I don't understand why I don't understand why people would think that, for one, because that's one of the ones of the future, actually, if you really think about it. Able to like look at the spies, spy on other people, your so-called enemy, or what other people are doing with technologies, secret rooms, whatever they could find, out of body experience. You can do all that while you're doing that. Yes, I can understand that. So why would they give that type of power or that type of tech, or I wouldn't say even technology, but the advancement of like using the mind to, and especially using kids. Of course, kids would probably be the easiest because it comes easier to them. As you're an adult, your mind gets, we get brainwashed with all the stuff that's going on. We've been alive longer, so we've been more, the toxicity of this planet and what's been going on will affect us, of course. We don't mind. Hey, we don't have like a mind, like a child, like a mind more open up like that. Kind of more of a sponge, you know what I mean? But I believe that they've been doing that, and they still been doing that. You know what I mean? Like all those stories, some people think they just still don't want to believe it, but like, all these papers that come out from the FBI and CIA, like example, like there was that lady there, her name was Angela Ford. She was on the Sean Ryan show, and she was talking about, she was in an Army back then, right? She was an Army psychic. She worked for the Army and then moved, like the earlier caller, I believe, I don't know who that was, I think a newer guy, but he was talking about like how they were moving from different, like I said, different parts of the CIA. They were just skipping from like, these programs into the CIA wanted to recruit her straight up because, they have like these schools where they can teach you the abilities, but then there's people like her where she just has a natural ability and, she was more stronger than somebody that's been, trained to do some of that. They've got like movies, like for example, I was going to bring up like Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo is a show about these kids, these gamers, right? And that they were known for like their, I guess through contests or whatever, but like driving cars, like those open cart racing and stuff like that. They were doing those, so they were trying to see if these gamers could drive a car for real like that. And they made a movie about it. It's called Gran Turismo, and so that's more of a psychic ability, because you've been training your, with your mind, somewhat in visual, especially nowadays with the effects of these games. They're moving it into virtual reality and stuff like that. But I mean, getting kids is one of the main ones, right? So there's this video here, I'm going to share it right now, but there's this video on YouTube where this guy, he goes around, he does a bunch of different shows, but he did this one on where he went to England, and they go to the school where they got these schools where all these kids go to, and they're training them. Some might be, natural abilities, but they train them. They always wear these blindfolds so they can see different colors while they're blindfolded. They can also, what color, whatever picture they're holding up, description of it. And I'm talking, they're just like flipping through it, to these color cards. And these kids are training their minds because they say they can see the vibration of the color is how they're detecting it. And when they, when they have some of that, so like with all that now, I believe these governments, instead of trying to get rid of it like the old ancients did, right? Like say they go back in the ancients, they were like mass murdering people that had these abilities, kids, anybody that had, you know, I mean, they were trying to squash all that, right? You know, the great Roman Empire, right? So they were, I talked about that within another show too, but like they were getting rid of people that had these so-called psych abilities or other kind of abilities. Instead of using it for their, you know, they were just trying to get rid of it worldwide instead of just, you know, I think maybe that could be another program within itself to get rid of people instead of, or trying to find out, you know, like all these DNA collections where they have like, you know, 23andMe and all these other ones where they're collecting DNA. Maybe that's what they're doing, trying to figure out, you know, through just like the Jedis, you know, with the chlorinium in the blood. Seriously, there could be something within DNA, because everything within the DNA, you know, like all this, they call them junk DNA, but they're not realizing what it is. You know, maybe that's, you know, maybe but they just keep calling it junk DNA. Maybe that's what they're looking for with this DNA collection. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't laughing at you. I was chuckling because imagine doing like a DNA test from 23andMe or something, and it sends it back. It's like, congratulations, you're a Jedi, bro. it's like, wow, damn.
Right.
Who knew?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, man. So, but you know, you got, I mean, these. Whoever back in the day, I believe they were still doing it way back then. You know what I mean? Because you even have like, you know, like the orphan trains, the Cabbage Patch Kids, the incubator babies, where all these babies were just popping up out of anywhere, man. And there were like hundreds of thousands of kids on these trains and populating these towns that were so-called built and stuff, you know, or founded, I should say. But they were, you know, who knows what they were doing? Maybe they were, you know, you could clone these kids and then throw them through societies and just, you know, watch them through generations to see, you know, what pops up. You know what I mean? Just kind of like you would think of like Star Wars, like the dark side. Like they said, they were going throughout the universe and throwing out seeds and seeing what they can come up with, some going bad, or just people that can use the Force and then be able to be trained to, you know, or manipulated to go to the dark side. You know what I mean? So I believe they've been doing this stuff. They haven't stopped doing it. You know what I mean? I believe these programs are still up. I mean, just like the Russians. It all come from like the Germans, you know, like you were talking about paperclip. Because we were not only took scientists, but Russia took a bunch of, thousands of scientists as well. Not, you know, but they called it Operation, I don't want to even try to, because I can't speak Russian, but like it starts with a K, like Claude was. But yeah, it's another program that they had with thousands, you know what I mean? And some of it, like where I was looking for, you know, I was looking down that one, they don't have them all yet. I mean, I don't know if they want to talk about it or if it's secret, top secret, but they won't give it a complete list of who the Russians got, you know, besides the list that we have, you know what I mean? Because with Werner von Braun, within just for him, you know, his little group that he had, besides the other people that worked on, like, you know, science, biological weapons and stuff like that, he brought in 127 scientists himself, you know what I mean, just for his rocketry program. So, I mean, and we know that the Germans were all into all that, right? They had the Vril Society, they had all, you know, they're all into all that, you know what I mean? And it makes you think, because, you know, Germany was sending out all these SS, you know, around the world, right? And they were looking for all these ancient stuff. They were all over the place on these ancient, you know what I mean? Because they were all into that, you know, esoteric stuff where they wanted to find out if some of this stuff was true, whether it would be true or not. You know, if it was mythology, then so be it. But they didn't believe it was, obviously, because they were sending these troops out around the world to look for that stuff.
Yeah, the way I understand it is, and I'm not sure, again, fact check me on this, just from what I've read. As usual, right, you can't really trust the propaganda of the world, but in the World War II aspect after it ended, that the Soviets were in a particular area, we were in a particular area, and kind of closing, and the Soviets got the chemical chemical weapon engineers, those scientists from Russia, and we got the rocket scientists, because they were, you know, clearly not working in the same space. They were different labs and different disciplines and whatnot. So that's how I understand it, is they got the really, really nasty chemical weapon mines that they sort of enveloped into their, Soviet arsenal, just like we did with we got the rockets. And it makes sense because, after that, we sort of turned NASA into the modern space supremacy, at least for the time being, until they didn't do that anymore. But you know what I mean? It's a weird thing, but that's what I read. That's how I understand it. If I'm wrong, so be it. Hey, get over it. Some people are wrong about some things sometimes. But yeah, regarding do you think these programs are still happening in 2025? That becomes the real question, sort of the Ender's Game aspect of even trafficking and then utilizing children, young people to kind of move into the space of the paranormal industrial complex.
Yeah, that's what I was just kind of mentioning, like that one, that it's a school that's run out of England that does that. And I'm pretty sure the United States government is not going to be trying to fall behind with that. Especially with all the stuff, like I said, with Joe McGonigal and Ingo Swann, and the Monroe Project, all those guys, you know what I mean? They've, like I said, with all the stuff that they've got, all the, the information they've got when using that type of stuff, why would you get rid of it? You know what I mean? That's something that's very handy for each government to use, and if they do, then we're going to just fall behind, because I'm pretty sure that Russia didn't get rid of that program, and I'm pretty sure China has got a program just as well. I mean, why wouldn't you? This is something that can't be traced, it can't be tracked, you know what I mean, like technology-wise, everybody's got, like, airplanes, they're trying to get it to where, for example, like our aircraft, where it can suck in radar. What it does is suck in radar, what's being bounced off the aircraft, but it's being sucked into the intake and out the exhaust, and kind of like dispersed, right? So it doesn't look like, and if the radar does pick it up, it looks like the size of a bird instead of an airplane, right? So that type, stuff like that, right? We got, just like, that also was going to go talking about, well, like with Ben Rich, for example, like the other part of your write-up on there, right? For the technology part, we got Ben Rich was talking in 1993 at UCLA when he had, his famous sayings about we can take ET home, right? We have the ability to do all that, right? And that was like over, 30-some years ago. And that was back then. And now, now we're talking 30 more years. I'm pretty sure we got, we're delving in all kinds of stuff. That's where all these black projects, and they're not really even talking about. Because if you want information about that type stuff, you need to ask certain questions or, word it right to even get the paperwork for that. Now, another thing, too, for me, I believe that these corporations that got government funding, right, that the government has got, or the military is giving them funding for their type stuff, I believe the American people should have the right to look at their stuff too, right? It doesn't matter, because if they're, that they're a private company, I believe that they have to give up that information. If they're getting taxpayer money, we should have the ability to know what's going on and how that money is being spent, not just because it's a private corporation and they don't have to give out that information. There should be laws added to that, I believe, because that we have the right to know what kind, where our money is being spent at. It can't just be black budget we don't know. And, you know what I mean? That, to me, that I find that very hard pill to swallow when people say stuff like that. You know what I mean? That is a private corporation, and we can't, verify that. And then if that's the case, and they don't get taxpayer money, that's how I see it as. But like, like look at all the technology, from the 1940s into now, real quick, was about like how the technology explosion of what we got to now. You know what I mean? We went from horse and buggy to supposedly rock, to rocketry, right? Which is pretty amazing. Then they say we went to the moon, but like, if we had the ability to do all that, right, and even all this other type stuff where we got like, say the 47 Roswell crash, right? We have technologies that have been just constantly booming from there. Again, that's where like, Ben Rich has that information from Blackworks or Skunkworks, you know what I mean? He's got that Black Project, stuff like that. So who knows, man? I mean, if we had the ability then, we might have the ability, because just like some people say, like these so-called people that come out of the woodworks saying, they work for government contractors or whatnot, whistleblowers, and, they say that, all this stuff, but how do we really know? You know what I mean? Say they did have the technology, but doesn't mean that they know how to use it. You know what I'm saying? Now, that's another thing. There's another stories about that where we have the technology, but we don't know how to use it specifically until now. But I don't know, man. That's another question that I believe that should be answered. I'm with JFK when he talks about secret societies and how it's repugnant, to the American people. So I'm about open stuff like that. We need to know.
Absolutely. Let's crack the nut open. That's the whole point. And not forget some of these other older threads that might be swept under the rug for something, a little newer and a little more shiny. The JFK files, the Epstein stuff, again, the UFO stuff. I'm not holding my breath. We're going to get UFO information. I think there's just national security implications that will never allow that nut to be cracked in particular. However, there's some other stuff. There's some of this periphery stuff with what we're talking about tonight, which is maybe more important because we might get more to the bottom of what's actually happening. Got about 30 seconds left. Go ahead. You're welcome to stay after the break too if you got more.
No, man, that's about it. That's all I got. But I just wanted to, come in and give my thoughts on this. But it's a good one, man. You know what I mean? Because you gotta kind of, like you're saying, here's a shiny object, but yet then here's this project off to the side that no one's really talking about or even giving a thought. Because there, you hear people talk about, even that were in the project like that. I was talking about Angela Ford. She was saying that they had wanted to get rid of that, but I don't believe they are. I mean, that's just it's a too powerful tool, especially now that you can use kids. Get them young and train them young.
Exactly right. Well said. Always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for being patient, sharing the airwaves, and thanks for your thoughts. Fire, as always, you're the best.
Of course, man. It's always good to hear what everybody's got to say, and I've got patience for that. So, anyway, good show tonight, man. You guys have a good evening.
Appreciate you, brother. Tell Michelle we said hi. Have a great night. Kelly in Colorado, you know me, love him, good friend for a long time. Be right back. More with James. We got MJ on the line as well, and your calls. What do you know? How much of this is real? Don't go anywhere.
Shadows. We've got maps where nobody goes. In the night under hidden glows, guardians of what no one knows. We seek the truth, nothing can hide from me. In cloaked silence we traverse the lines, through ancient scrolls in forgotten times. Voices echo in the halls of lore, guardians of the mysteries evermore. We seek the truth, nothing can hide from me. Where shadows meet in cryptic disguise, our eyes sharp against the everlines. With silver threads we weave the stealth to guard the past, forgotten world. In the realm where the myths collide, with hidden lore our fates are tied. Signals bouncing off the astral plane, invisible codes that can't be tamed. We decode the stars under the midnight veil, base-state and silken sweats midnight hail. In the echoes of time where the legends lay, we tread the path where shadows play.
With spectral eyes we discern the truth, unraveling tales from ancient youth.
With spectral eyes, we discern the truth. Tell me AI is awful. It can't ever write a good thing. That's a great song. What's up? Hope you guys are well tonight. Just hanging out, doing Troubled Mind stuff. I see you in the chat. Thanks again for being nice to each other. It's very important to me that we can carve out a corner of the internet where we can agree to disagree or whatever and just talk about possibilities. That's what this has always been about. If you're trying to pin me into a corner and tell me, yeah, what do you really believe, Mike? Honestly, I don't know. Truth is perspective, right? So it's the slippery fish, as I like to call truth. And so I don't really know. I think there's a lot of merit to a lot of these ideas, but how much of it is kind of locks in and yeah. Anyway, it makes some more or less sense. Matt Sell, I see you there. What's up, buddy? If I missed anybody, just say hi. I'll say hi back. Doing my best. Jeff and Wisco. What's up, Daryl? Sweets. We got Gaston. Sonia. What's up, Hirsch? Eric, I see you guys. What's up, YY? Poff. We got Knights of the Storm. The JB. What's up, Hiker? You guys are all the best. Thanks for pinning this stuff and the great ideas and being cool and chill with each other. And yeah, damn it, Mike, give us the truth, says James. All right, here we go. Trouble Minds coming up. Right. Yeah. Welcome back to Troubled Minds, yada yada, all the things, all the places, you already know. If you're still here, you already know what I'm talking about. We're streaming in all the places. We're on the digital radio there. We're on 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight we're talking, I'm calling this the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex. Now, if you go back to MK Ultra and Stargate and some of these old things that everybody knows about, I mean, anybody that kind of has any sort of conspiracy mind to them and knows a little bit of the fringes of history, this is real. It's a real thing. It's been studied. Are they still studying this and what's happening? We're told that these programs, there was nothing to find, there was nothing to see, and they've sort of been, kind of sidelined. They've been put to bed and, we were mistaken somehow and psi abilities or whatever they are, right? But I don't know. My intuition tells me that's not the case because, of course, right? It's not a hard intuition in that regard because how would you describe it? Governments lie. I mean, governments just lie. And so the intuition aspect to me goes, well, if they say it, then I'm not really easily swayed by a government statement on pretty much anything. And so it's easy for me to recognize the opposite from a government statement and go, well, why would they say that? Anyway, what is happening with this? And are they still doing, MK Ultra level stuff with Stranger Things Ask 11 and psi powers and again, psionics in the UFO field? And it's weird to me that some of this kind of comes out and how much is psyop and how much is, the shiny object? And are we missing the entire point of back to not just the occult government sort of union here, but more importantly, are we missing the fact that possibly children, young people are being, quote, recruited to these programs sort of in a clandestine style? I don't know. It's wild. If you guys want to pop in here, love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. What's your take on this? Real, nah, somewhere in between? And what's happening with this in 2025? Back to James. What else you got regarding this or anything else? I know you've been quiet for a minute, so if you got anything, go ahead, and we'll go to MJ after that, and your calls as well.
Yeah, great call from Kelly and everyone. I'm just amazed here. Look at how many examples we've all sort of come up with of the archetype in fiction of these schools for people with different abilities. I mean, it's just throughout fiction, throughout the last several decades. And so where does that come from? And I also like how Kelly pointed out the DNA thing. Maybe it is something that's easier now to do, because I can tell you, with all the research I've done and experiences I've had with things, abilities can run in families, and you hear about that, and abilities or just experiences, which may be the result of abilities that can run in families. Not that every single person in the family may have those abilities, but you'll get one in this generation, and one in that one, maybe two here, another one there. I've read about that, and I've seen that. So maybe, you know, with all these modern ways of and companies that collect DNA, I mean, what if that's that's pretty wild to think about that as them being part of that, possibly that process of figuring things out, even if it's only they don't have the technology to scan for, you know, they may not even know what it takes, what genetic material it takes to have those abilities, but someone else does.
Yeah, and not only that, the bizarre part about this stuff, and I was talking about this years ago. You know me, I'm a tinfoil hat type, and I'm like, why would you send your DNA to a private company that swears they're going to delete it, and then they go out of business? And now rumor on the street is like the database is out there. It's been leaked, or somebody bought it, somebody hacked it. China is now involved. I mean, you know, you take the bailout money where you can get it, right? And you're like, well, what do we have to offer if we delete all the DNA that comes through us? Because that was the pledge they gave us, is that if you did your DNA thing through 23andMe, they kept it for like 60 days or something and then incinerated the files or whatever. But come on now, as I was always saying, really, seriously, like the true value of a DNA database is not more DNA coming in. It's what you've got, and being able to kind of use it for, you know, medicine, and use it for, you can use your imagination and building the Incredible Hulk or whatever. And so, yeah, well, anyway, if anybody sent your DNA to 23andMe, I'm sorry about that, but it's now probably freely available on the interwebs, and your source code, which is what I like to call it. I called this way back in the day when we did our first show on DNA. I called it our personal source code. And would you want to give that to everybody? Was it BlackRock? Yeah, there you go. So Kelly says, I believe BlackRock bought all of 23andMe. Yeah, right? And so, hey, BlackRock, buying up all the homes and all the DNAs and all the things, and algorithmic money printing. Anyway, anything on that, James? We'll go back to MJ.
Yeah, just that. Isn't that funny that this big company that even I know, and I don't even follow all this stuff. I've still heard of it, mainly through, you know, talking with everyone, all the amazing people here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to MJ's call.
Right on. You're the best. If you guys want to be part of the conversation tonight, got about 20 minutes left. Jump on in here. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Talking psychics and the government aspect of it. And is something like MK Ultra still happening in 2025? MJ in Virginia, welcome back, brother. What you got for us? Go right ahead.
Well, James had mentioned that he was able to, this woman allowed him to look through her eyes to see what was being, you know, he needed to see. And I started thinking about it. Back in my heyday, I was doing readings. I periodically, it was haphazard in the beginning, but I kind of learned how to do it. You could look through, like I'm talking to you, and so I'm looking through your eyes, and I can see the inside of your house or wherever you are, right? I'm looking through your eyes. So imagine a ghost head coming out of me and settling into your head, and I can see everything you're seeing clearly. I can see everything. Okay. All right. Now you're being called out to see something. And you go up and you look, and you know exactly where to look. That was a strange thing. I always knew, I'm look over here. I knew where to look, or to walk to and look up. I always knew. Some of it was, you know, just you kind of like haphazard, you look up and see, but it was meant to be that way. So imagine these kids are being taught remote viewing to build up their talents, and they have figured out a way to tap into your brain frequency or your personal phone number to your brain and use you as your eyes as surveillance cameras. You know, we have the ones at the banks and all over the place. You could be caught hacking into them, but you can never be caught looking through somebody else's eyes.
That's wild. That's next level wild. I'm not even sure I'm with you on that one. But who knows? Who knows what's possible, right? That becomes really the thing when you've been delving into this for 50, 60, 70, 80 years of this type of research. What kind of stuff becomes possible? And that's the fringe of possibility in my mind. But just because I can't conceive of it technologically doesn't mean it's impossible. So I don't know, man. I'm with you in that there's probably some of this still happening. And how bizarre does it get? How far does that envelope stretch? maybe that's the end of it, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's even more weird than we ever dreamed. What about entanglement and some of these other aspects? And if they've cracked those codes yet, I mean, they're talking creating a quantum internet very soon, with entanglement being the actual connection. So there's security is completely covered because it doesn't actually travel from this place to that place. It's just the entangled part from there to you, and so there's no. You can't block it anyway. It's just an entanglement. I don't know. Like that's the type of weird stuff that we're on the cusp of with that acceleration quickening, as I always talk about.
Well, I imagine if I can do it, because I'm always the last, I'm on the bottom of the rung on everything. I figure if I could do it, everybody else can do it. And James had that experience. And I'm looking at that thinking, if you're a good remote viewer, talented, you can, like your number is 081125-87. And they put that number in front of this person, focus on that and, and see what you can see with it. Suddenly they're in your head looking through your eyes. I've done that. I literally had this reading. I remember the reading. It was a little girl. She's 4 years old. And she had taken her mother's necklace and went to the garage and put the necklace in a coat. Why she did this, I don't know. She's trying to hide it or something. So what happened with me on this reading was I sat there and I was actually 2 hours in the past following her trail as to where she went. But I was down low because I passed a chair and I couldn't figure out, why am I so low to this chair? And the woman mentioned there was a 4-year-old child. I think, well, she's not very tall. What I finally realized was I was in the past, following her path, what she did, looking through her eyes the entire time. I found the coat in the garage, the type of coat, and where the pocket, what pocket it was in. So if I'm able to do that, and no training, can you imagine what people can do with training who are talented? They can do those things. That's not an impossible thought. If I'm doing it, it's been done, as far as I'm concerned. And so they can use you as surveillance. If you're susceptible to it, you could be tapped in at any time and may or may not know it. You just suddenly get this whim, like, I want to look around this building. It's really cool. And the building's not cool. But suddenly you just get this urge to start looking around like, oh, my God. It could be somebody's using you for surveillance.
I'm making a note: entanglement surveillance. We'll get back to this. It's why not, right? I mean, if you can crack the science of that, of entanglement itself, then suddenly maybe that type of stuff becomes reality. I don't know. It's incredible to think that we're on the cusp of these discoveries that maybe people, we talk about the shamanic journey all the time, that maybe people have been sort of tuned into for a very long time, that we're now recognizing is not magic, it's science. And the microtubules and all the stuff with Orco-R, shout out Eric there. I didn't know what that was, but we've been talking about it for a long time, but I didn't realize it was Stuart Hammeroff talking about that. Who's also on Jay's channel over there on Project Unity. He had a couple of recent conversations with him, but it's an incredible thing. Right? Cross your fingers that we get to a particular place where all of this becomes as transparent as possible, because it's the ultimate surveillance state of the tuning into our brains and our eyeballs. It's absolutely wild to consider. You're the best, bro. We got a call we got to get to. Final thought. We'll go back to James for a second. Okay. And you're the best, as you know.
Yeah, no final thought. That James triggered that, and I thought, oh my God, that's a good day. So yeah, that was it.
You're the best. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for popping.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure. MJ in Virginia, you know him, you love him, and been a good friend for a long time. And he's again a psychic. He's been doing that type of work for a long time and experienced a lot of things that he's talked about. And what does it mean? All of these things, what does it mean? There seems to be something that we're not considering, at least scientifically in the open accepted space, which is, brings us to this and what we talk about. James, anything on that? And we got Jen on the line. We'll go to Jen in just a second.
Yeah, I don't know how it worked or what the connection was, if I was seeing through that woman's eyes to see herself or not. I just know I was able to see her in detail more than I normally can. So, and with the idea of being called out, I do feel like that is what happened when I saw those blue lights. I have no explanation for why I felt like I had to go get the mail at 3 a.m. the first time. I don't usually think about that. I hardly ever think about getting the mail. I actually got a note on the door one time from the Postal Service, go get your mail, because I forget, because I can't read the stuff. It's just, I don't think about it. So, but that one day I did. And that's when I saw the blue light for the first time. So Yeah, but looking forward to Jen's call.
Nice. We need to get you a furnace so you can save your mail up all year and just heat yourself during the winter.
Works for me.
Yeah, it's I'm the same way. I'm like, I got to go check the mail. It means I got to spend 20 minutes going through 3 months of mail.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
And, like, garbage. It's all garbage. Just throw it in the incinerator. Oh, by the way, I got jury duty recently, and
fun.
That's why I checked the mail. I was like, here we go, right? But I called in the night before, and they're like, oh, you're good. We don't need you. I was like, yes, yes. I'll tell you my jury duty story another time. I've told it on the chat offline. I don't think on the show. But anyway, we're talking the Military-Industrial-Paranormal Complex. I made that up, but you know what I mean. It seems strange that the government has been into this occult stuff for the last 80-ish years or so. Why? And is it still happening? This MK Ultra level stuff, the telepathy tapes is brand new, sort of in the zeitgeist as of the end of 2024. It shot to the top of the podcast charts ahead of Joe Rogan and everything else. It literally went to #1. And it's about this. It's about what we're talking about. And so it's still in the zeitgeist for sure. People are massively interested. But why? You think there's nothing to this? Or do you think there's something to it? And that's the whole point. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Thanks for being patient. Jen in Missouri, the Arcane Observer. How are you tonight? And go right ahead.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Cool. Chilling, doing the thing, hanging out, talking telepathy. Hey, it's living the dream. Why not, right?
Yeah. I 100% agree with what MJ was saying about somehow through the consciousness, being able to see a bigger scope, the way as he was describing it. I completely agree with that. In addition to that, I want to add to, we've had for a long time, like with you have the orphan trains and scenarios like that, basically like pulling from the civilian masses these huge groups of children. And it's usually motivated through, in that case, with the orphan trains, they were pulling from the poorest communities in the South and in the East, from New York and from the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, and the southern regions. And they were transporting them all to the Midwest and selling them literally as like slaves. These kids, anybody can look this up, and this was actual fact. It was something like 200,000 children or something like that. A massive number. And we still have, like, in the case of people have heard about it, if they look up the finders, the idea of the finders, Ted Gunderson kind of talked about this a lot, of pulling children. I think it was Johnny Gosh, the story of Johnny Gosh. He was a newsboy. And so he was like a paper boy, and how he disappeared and nobody heard from him again. And then he popped up, and people thought that maybe, actually he went and talked to his mother, was the report. His mother said that he came back and talked to her and said he wouldn't be able to talk to her ever again. And yet she saw him talking to George Bush, like as a member of the press. And so the concept of these, with the finders, it just was that there were certain groups that were going around, and they would pick up these children from lower socioeconomic classes, and they would pull them in, and they had these this sort of idea that there was, with the finder group initially, it was that there were some children playing at a playground. I think it was in New York City. And the police were called because the children were so poorly kept that it drew attention from people who were also in the park. And the police came, and I think the children had moved along with the two men that were watching over them at the time, like to a nearby area. They weren't in the park anymore. But the more they investigated into it, the police locally investigated into it, they sort of located this warehouse where apparently kids had been being kept. This is a constant circuit of this idea of them evading, but eventually they did do, interviews with all of the children, and there were signs of sexual abuse and psychological abuse, and none of the children knew the people that they were with. And it was this sort of prolapse into this kind of idea that there were these groups independently in operation that were taking children and trying to see how they would be shaped outside of a household or outside of an educational system, that they were being kind of radicalized in a way. And that the whole thing with Johnny Gosch, it began this whole idea that maybe a lot of people in the press or even in, entertainment industries are actually being pulled, and they are shaped from young childhood by this system of control, the MK Ultra control mechanism. And it was found, too, that many people in the entertainment industry, they are actually adopted. They're not actually, their biological parentage and things like that are not easily traced. But just that these children being used as sort of honeypots for pedophiles even was something that, or I should say, I will call it something else, I guess, but basically that there was this sort of thing going on, even in political spectrums, to get information and to spy on different networks and to use it as a form of, I guess, to, what do you call that? A type of blackmail. So you have that at play. And then the whole, the Franklin cover-up that came out of the Midwest, but that's not just there. It's in the southern orphanages. In fact, there was an individual that came across, was convicted of murder, and the stepdad, or whatever the case, owned was the manager of a casino in Las Vegas, in Reno. And there was a beach in Florida as well. So there was correspondence about, according to this man, now a man anyway, that in childhood would go to this beach, and then, some sorts of things would happen. Basically, just when looking at this from a purely psychic perspective, yeah, there's a lot at work, but there's a lot of work going on at just using the essence of children in political spectrums. That is definitely prevalent. That's the most prevalent thing I can think of that stands out, is that this is going on, and there's attention drawn to it, but that why is there a group in that arena anyway that is so drawn towards children? And then the concept of even just feeding off of the energy of the children. We've talked about that before, but just I think what was really interesting is the Johnny Gosch story, that he would become a press member for Bush, and he was an abducted child. And then he was also, a male escort. He had a male escort service at work, too. And then everything that came out with Macron recently, that his wife actually could have been possibly. I think Candace Owens talks about this, and there was a book that was written that she had heard about, and so on and so forth. That he had been his teacher at one point, of Macron's, and had groomed him, and then and now they're husband and wife, so to speak. But this sort of shaping process of children from a young age into these positions of influence, whether it's in the news or entertainment or sports, wrestling. I've heard of wrestlers where this applies, where they were adopted by these particular families and things like that. And they were literally just shaped to become what we see in the media and in our entertainment industry. And it's not all of them, but there's sort of a prevalence there that's odd.
Yeah. It's super dark. I think you said 200,000. I heard as high as 300,000 missing children. The Diddy stuff plays here with Usher and sort of Justin Bieber. I mean, there's an unbelievable amount of WTF stuff going on. It's like, stop. Look, if we're a modern society that cannot protect our children, we are doing every damn thing wrong. And that's what pisses me off the most about all this stuff is come on, stop. this has to stop at some point. And if we don't think about it, we don't talk about it. Like I said, it's really dark. But this stuff does the military-industrial-paranormal complex. It does crisscross with that Epstein stuff. And so what do we do? Like, we have to demand transparency, of course, and find out what they know about these things. But then beyond that, like I said, it is a failure of modern society that we cannot protect our children. It's just grotesque to the highest order.
Yeah, and we can handle it. I mean, I know it's like that's very dark, but we can handle it. You know, people can handle it. And it's just being aware that it's happening, you know, and then understanding why it is happening is even more, that's the confusing part of like, why in the world? But I think it's because, you know, like, this the whole idea of you take them when they're young and you shape them to what you want them to be, and then they don't stray from that. They can't. It's like they've shaped the creature to be. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, with children, I think it's much like that. But, yeah, people can handle it. I think it's just, being told they can't handle it and then thinking it's too dark approach. That's what they've been going along with for so long, even though it's obviously not. And people are fine. They want to know so that maybe it can be stopped, you know? And I don't know. I think that's really key. It's just, being more open about that it is happening, that there is some type of, I guess there's a system at play, but nobody even knows what it is, and we can't even find, you know, anything. And there's no reason to dig for it. It's just being aware of it. Like, that's really, the whole finders thing was a huge thing. And Ted Gunderson, you know, that was really interesting, but I mean, he literally was the FBI chief, I think, and I think it was Tennessee and in California. You know, this wasn't just some dude. You know, as far as like you don't just get into the FBI. It's really complicated. So I don't know, especially at the levels he was at. And what he was reporting was that these individuals were literally taking children and then literally in like little tribal groups. And this was in the 60s and the 70s. There was a lot of the communism, like the communes, you know, where people would have this sort of free love and these children and so on and so forth. But then there were these the children, you know, that often were shaped in like a sort of cult-like scenario, you know. I don't know, but I think through systematic abuse and that sort of shaping it that way, but then having a purpose where they have a loyalty to something. Like Johnny Gosh, the idea is that he was just a boy and didn't want to be there, but as time went on, he got groomed into it, and then he himself became one of these seekers of others. Or the case that these children report, you know, that they grow up in it, and then they themselves go out and help to even get these kids sometimes, you know, unsuspectingly. It's really dark, but I mean, there is so much. That's just not, I mean, the whole darkness of our society. That's constant when it looks, it's usually personal. Usually the darkness is personal and the violence is personal. It's amongst certain individuals. But when it's a bigger scope like this, where it's a broad range and it's a stranger effect, where it's something from, say, the federal government, or say from some groups that are involved with the government, or that are being funded by, at some degree, are involved with it. I mean, especially too, and typically like, you know, inner cities or small towns, you know, off the highways and things like that, is typically where it seems to be the most active, which is where you would least expect to have it. But yeah, I think it's a really important aspect of it. And as far as the psychic abilities, I think feeding off of and manipulating the psychic abilities of humans in general to make them, to shape them, to reshape them into a completely different entity, you know, than they were initially going. We haven't really, I mean, we understand the idea that, you know, of programming, you know, that people are shaped to become who they're going to be. But the radicalization into through systematic sexual abuse in a lot of instances, or through programming that this is the new normal, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know. It's very controversial, but I think that it's worth thinking about, you know,
and it's
without too much in the way of making it something, oh, it's so controversial we can't talk about it. That's ridiculous.
Well, it's incredibly important. It's like I said, it is one of the massive failures of our modern society. And so if it's not on the top of our minds, then we're doing some things wrong. And there's a lot of power players that are built into these systems too, that are pervo-pedos. And that's just the way it is. And so, you know, the meme is super, you know, poignant and, you know, not exact, but where you got the Milky Way galaxy and like a little arrow pointing, you know, you are here paying taxes to pedophiles. I mean, like,
my God, yeah. I mean, the whole thing with it, real quick, is like, how can they be so sure that there are so many pedophiles in these positions of power that this will appeal to them and can be used as like a honeypot scenario of like, hey, we'll send this in and we'll use that as a blackmail and we'll use that. I mean, the prevalence is incredible that would actually be a market for it. Like with Epstein, there were the concepts that you have, of course, you know, whatever you want, you know, your sexual appetite, you know, whatever you're wanting, just so happens to dip down very low. And then in some echelons, in some groups, even lower than that, you know. So this prolific pedophilic agenda, I think, is really prominent. And with children in particular, it's like this. There has to be something at work that is evil. I'm sorry, but like, it's purely just evil. As close as you can cut to it. Because the whole motivation behind it, and then, you know, I don't know. That's what it stands out as. You know, it's not just a preference for blondes or for brunettes or redheads or, you know, 6 foot or 16. But when you start talking about like 8-year-olds and stuff like that, that's not just underage. It's way beyond that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something completely different going on.
Yeah.
Then you have the whole, all of that.
Yeah, it needs to be addressed. And where are those 300,000, the high number, 300,000 missing kids? Where are these kids? And what the hell's going on with it?
Right.
And it's like I said, a failure of our modern society that we just kind of sweep this under the rug. And the media is complicit. That's the worst part of it. They're just like, oh,
well, is it because some of them are them?
It could be.
Do you see what I'm saying?
It could be.
It makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder. Absolutely. Fire stuff. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for staying up late with us. Thanks for all the fire contributions, and thanks for being you.
You too. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too. Jenna Missouri, the Arcane Observer. You know you love her. Please go give her a follow on all the places. Link's going to be in the description down below. troubledminds.org/friends. And it says follow Jen here. Please do that. And while you're down there, again, right there on the screen, Troubled Minds, click the friends link, scroll down. It says Jen. It's alphabetical order. So if you're on the bottom, sorry, YY, your name's W. But it is alphabetical because that's just the way it. If you did it any other way, people would be super mad, right? But anyway, scroll down, follow Jen. While you're down there, follow James, who's been with us all night, hanging out, doing the paranormal expert at Troubled Minds. And by the way, Jen and James are the hosts of South Cedar Paranormal. So appreciate the call, Jen. Always amazing stuff. James, go ahead. A final thought, and let's wrap this up.
Yes, great call from Jen. I'll be releasing the show that Jen and I did on Saturday. I'll be releasing that tonight after the show is done. So, thank you as always, Mike. Great call from Jen. Very important points there, and great calls from everyone. And thank you, as always, Mike, for having me on the show.
Glad to have you. I thought once I put the paranormal aspect of this, I thought you might be interested. Glad you're feeling better. Glad to have you back. I know you had a rough couple of weeks there. Everything good? Feeling better mostly? Everything kind of on the mend?
Other than just the headaches that are back, I'm getting used to those and adjusting, and doing okay.
Okay is better than not okay. Glad to have you, brother. Appreciate you very much. Please go follow James, go follow Jen, go follow all these amazing people. Look, it's an in list. It's not an out list. It's the reason why we moved it. I used to have our friends in the actual show notes, but it just grew so big that it didn't make any sense anymore because it was gobbling up all the space. It's good to have smart friends interested in ideas like this that can talk about a wide number of things. And look at all these friends. If you should be on that list, you should be. Okay, just a reminder, this is an in list, not an out list. This is Big Tent conspiracy, as I like to call it. So if you all you got to do is help us 1 iota. Spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening. Repost us. Do whatever. And you got to have something to share, right? Otherwise, how do I put you on the thing? Just put your name? I mean, that's cool if you want to do that. But spread the word. Repost us. Let people know in the real world. Buy some merch. Do whatever. If you want to be on that list, just contact me, troubledmindsradio@gmail.com, and say, hey, Mike, put me on the list. I'm helping this way or that way. That's it. All you got to do is help the group. And notice what happens when a bunch of amazing people get together and talk about wild ideas by dark of night, but also with a human aspect. That's what this is all about. It's all about considering these reality tunnels and how they come together and what that looks like in a very complicated space, the world we live in. That's that. Shout out Bobby Broadway. I see you there, buddy. What's up, Gaston? If I missed anybody, sorry about that. Doing my best to keep up. But yeah, appreciate you very much. Thanks for hanging out and being cool and chill. If you want to help us directly, you know what to do. Go to troubledminds.org, click the support link. There's again, Spreaker's the best way. It's like $5 a month. And so there's no, literally, they don't take a cut. So if you sub up on Spreaker, that top one, troubledminds.org, support/support, Spreaker, it's $5 a month. So think about this. The value of this show, if the show was worth if tonight's show was worth 42 cents to you, because we do that many a month, and that's what $5 a month is, please, it's $5. And think about how much a movie costs for 3 hours of fantastic entertainment. Spreaker is the best way. There's Ko-Fi, Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, the Troubled Fan Shop, which is good too if you want to wear some Troubled Minds swag like I got on right now. The Troubled Minds t-shirt, there's Synchro Mystic, there's the Dimensional Influencer, there's all kinds of wild stuff over there, so please go check that out. TroubledFans.com. You will not find Michael Strange in a hot tub, but you will find the hottest Troubled Minds merch around. It's as simple as that. Look, ideas are good. Human-centric things are good. That's the point. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep dreaming and thinking about how this comes together or does not, and trying to make some sense out of some nonsense. And that's it. That's exactly how it works. This one is for Jen. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. Shout out Puff over there on Rumble for the generous donation. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for caring. Thanks for being part of this. We'll be back on Tuesday night, God willing. You guys have a fantastic night. We'll see you then.